Ready, aim, release! Anyone see my mammoth? Good if I unmuted us, wouldn't it? There we go. Here we are back
That
again.
helps.
Another week, and some more things to obviously talk about. Carlo,
New intro video,
I know, right? New
or
intro
at least
video.
for today.
Memes because
Exciting
Night's Watch are really good. Honestly, like filming that bit, like had to do it with raiders and things like that. Absolute nightmare. I put a static camera on a board that I'd like to attach it to it, and then I smack the board to make the things bounce up. Nightmare. Promise you. Right. So I mean, aside from
High
that,
quality as always.
of absolute top quality. It's only terrible memes here, as we know. Carlo, how's it been for a week for you?
It's been, you know what? It's great weather around here. I didn't play any games. I didn't really build any models. I did some coding, but like it's just it's been really, really nice weather. So I've been outside. I'm a little bit tanned, a little bit. By tanned, I mean sunburnt. But that's the same thing in the UK, right?
Absolute lies. Yeah, I've got paints out. That's about as far as I got to doing anything. Yeah, no, I got some paints out. That's about it. Yeah, I've just been doing other things, obviously making videos and stuff, and other things, and playing lots of games. Played a hell of a lot of games now. So
yeah. You're always there looking in the Discord. We'll play anybody at any time.
Mm-hmm.
We'll play any list as far as I can tell.
Yep.
We'll play into any matchup. Man's been grinding, so good stuff.
Playing games, getting wins, getting losses. Gaining points. More importantly, adding to the data. But yeah, it's been overall just a good time, really. Obviously, this week we've got some things to talk about, and we'll talk about all of those things in due course. What are you? I mean, we've got some to give you an idea. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that was obviously just talked about and revealed earlier today. We've got some stuff about terrain and things like that that we're going to go and delve into. And unfortunately, I couldn't find certain things ready, so I was going to do some nice visual stuff, but alas, we're not going to have that. But just generally, how have you found that the last week has been in A Song of Ice and Fire?
So the TSL's kicking off. I haven't actually really seen any major results myself. I've been keeping tabs on what's going on with the old Humble Onion Smugglers, who went 2-2. Interesting, and I think for me things feel. We're going to come to the fact, like the stuff that people have just found out about. I mean, Mickey's going to put on a brave face, but Mickey's actually really annoyed because
I'm not annoyed at all.
Because he's known about this for a little while, and he desperately wanted it to be revealed on Tourney ground. He didn't even tell me. I didn't know until yesterday. Like he's been keeping it stum. I don't know where he found out from, but yeah. So Mickey will put on a brave face about that. But other than until like that kind of like leaked, got dropped, got revealed, everybody started talking about it. Things have been kind of quiet. Like I think everybody's just sort of like settling into like this is the reality now, which is
yeah,
Night's Watch are strong. Targaryens seem to be able to play with them. Lannister have some plays. Everybody else seems like I don't know. Like everybody else is still trying to find their feet. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. It is a nightmare. Sorry, my camera's just having a nightmare there as well. It is a nightmare, obviously, playing into Night's Watch. We talked about it. We'll look at the rankings and stuff later on. But yeah, it's just overall, it's overall looking pretty good. And on that note, we've got a completely 100% unofficial breaking news story, which is obviously already broken. So let's head to that right now. Our man on the scene. Well, these beasts seems to be hailing from Essos. This is Westeros breaking news. Large beasts have been spotted roaming the wastelands. They are said to tower over men and have large trunk-like features. The description seems to fit that of war mammoths, so look out for these in your local area. We go to an update with our man on the scene. Well, these beasts seems to be hailing from Essos, and they're wearing gleaming armor. Wait, there, we can see one. Oh, it isn't a war mammoth. It is not a war mammoth. I can't quite. Oh. Hello? Looks like we lost the signal. Mammoth-like beings in gleaming armor? Could it be? This is Westeros breaking news. So there we have it. I've gone blurry again. Classic Mickey blur. Terrible unofficial trailer for our new friends, the Golden Company, who have been not announced at all officially, but have been appearing on screens in your local areas. Yeah?
You mean that wasn't the official Simon trailer? What?
I mean, no, it wasn't. It was not the official Simon trailer. I tried really hard.
All right.
Alas, in classic Simon kind of like communication channels, I was completely unable to contact Simon in an official capacity.
For a comment.
I know, right? For a comment, give us a comment. How to get the budget for the voice actors, says Bruce. I had to pay someone quite a lot of time, mainly my time, try and get it right. It's terrible. Honestly, my voice acting and everything is absolutely terrible. It was to mimic a terrible reveal idea, and Lee did absolutely brilliant. You could hardly tell it wasn't official terror. Disappointing.
But like I'm saying, Mickey put together a video and everything. He's been knowing about this for a while. I don't know. I actually genuinely don't know how long he's been sitting on this, not telling me anything about this, because, you know, why would he let me know that there's something cool stuff going on? But yeah, like it seems that people, it's kind of broken on Facebook. People are talking about it now. There's quite a long list of stuff. When 2022, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see. This is all on the A Song of Ice and Fire. Well, it's not A Song of Ice and Fire. The Asmodee UK website, specifically the UK one. And we see. Shout out to Scabman, actually. Scabman obviously checks this kind of regularly because he found about this last Wednesday, I think it was, when he saw them go up. But we're going to go through, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to meme real hard. So, we'll talk about each one, or we'll go through all of them, then we'll talk about each one in turn. So the first thing we see is the Karstark Loyalists. We already knew Karstark Spearmen had appeared, but I'm guessing this appears on the new list. Now, this is the new Karstark Spearman unit. Interesting.
So we think that this is Karstark Spearman. This is a renaming of the same unit, is the guess, right?
I think so.
This isn't a second Karstark unit?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I'd buy that.
The interesting thing there being, obviously, we'll talk about the impact of that later on. And Stark Heroes 3, which we know is where Brynden Outrider Commander is supposed to be coming out.
And Maven Mormont.
And Mormont, of course. We'll move down and we'll look into Lannisters. We see the Red Cloaks there. We see Castle Rock Honor Guards, which is interesting. Literally nothing.
Yep.
Nothing there, I guess, that we know what that's about. Clegane Butchers have been up on the UK site before. I don't think they're up there now. Clegane Brigands, sorry, that's it. They're not up there anymore, but they used to be. Been taken down. We also see Lannister Heroes 3. You'll notice the Heroes 3 coming out for the main two factions. And again, that will be where
Mountain Rides.
Mountain
5 years in the waiting, or whatever the hell it is now.
Exactly.
I still have no clue what they're gonna do to make him an alt sculpt of the fact that, I mean, it's just got to be a reposition. He's just got to be in a different pose. That, like, because he can't. he can't be not armored. He can't be like, in the way that his infantry has the proper one, which looks just like the mountain that rides, and then there's the alt sculpt where he doesn't have a helmet on, he's not as armored, he doesn't have a shield. They can't do that reverse because that would be weird if that was the main mountain that rides model. So yeah, that's they've kind of put themselves in a corner with that one. But
Yeah.
I think Lannister players are desperate for that to be released, whether they have him or not, just so that they can put to bed all the arguments about whether or not him and these days as well, Maim Jamie, whether or not Maim Jamie is legal, because they are two quite important pieces for Lannisters.
Definitely agree. Definitely agree. We'll come back onto it and talk about all of these in more detail and speculate, of course. Are you ready for absolute bants? First of all, Night's Watch Hero 1 has the bloody Mama Zorse Rider image, which Asmodee. And then, as we can see, we see Night's Watch Hero Box 3! You heard it here first, guys. 2 was never announced. No, you didn't hear it here first. It's
what?
It's a meme of itself at this point. Like,
yeah, that's
it's
comedy
actually
gold.
nuts.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a bit, I guess. Free Folk, we see Free Folk Heroes 3, which again is really interesting because we've not seen Heroes 2. So a bit of a strange one there. Don't really know what's going on there. And then Neutrals, of course. Neutrals, we see Stormcrouchers, Stormcrow Dervishes, Golden Company Swordsmen, Golden Company Crossbowmen, and Golden Company Elephants. We'll talk about all of those in a minute. Talk about what that could mean.
Not a faction.
Not a faction.
Even if you had a whole extra sub faction, they're still not a faction.
Still not a faction. Not a faction. Nothing for Targaryens, so F you, Targaryen players. Had enough of your shit. You've had too many releases recently. Plus all of Stormcrows getting added. And Highgarden Pikemen coming out for Baratheons. Now, that is something we've heard of before. It has now been confirmed. It's on the site. Yeah. And that'll be obviously for Renly's side. So yeah, loads and loads of stuff there that we're going to talk about. Loads of stuff we can go into. There's nothing on the site, on the UK Asmodee site, for Greyjoys, other than what we already know. So that's pretty low, I guess, on the agenda. Interestingly, Reavers are listed as having their own box rather than just appearing in the mm-hmm. starter set.
To be assumed. Yeah.
What is interesting is that whoever was put this together put it together quite quickly, because as we know, lots of image mistakes, and some of these, like, that's miniatures. Spelling mistakes are rampant as well. So let's dive in. Karstart loyalists. This is all that we've got. We've got nothing else to go on. Just a name.
Please, picture, please. Anyone?
Please. I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah. I feel like traditionally, in like historical senses and all sorts of stuff, and mostly within this game, outside of Unsullied Pikemen, though they're sort of like, how many other spearmen are there? Yeah, lots of people complain that they want more spearmen. When we saw the Tyrell Pikemen as well, they all seem to be based around relatively cheap infantry. It seems to be a cheap thing, and like in a historical sense, like spearmen being armed with a spear was the cheapest, easiest way for infantry to fight. Like that is low quality, no training kind of infantry. Mm-hmm. So I expect it to be hitting in at like 5 points, a different, more defensive option versus the Sworn Swords.
Yeah.
Would be my 2 cents. That's why I assume coming in at the 5 point mark, same kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd like that. I'd like to see a 5 point kind of like defensive unit. What I was actually really interested in is the choice of name. Karstock Loyalists. Does this mean I would really like to see a Bolton flavored, neutral flavored Karstark? What's the opposite of a loyalist? Rebel, Karstark Rebels, perhaps. And I'd like to see a similar kind of unit, but coming out for neutrals, which could then be like opposed to the loyalists, and counter Robb Stark, if you will. That would be really good. I think that would be really interesting. We've seen it with the Stormcrows. They're willing to have neutrals now in faction and out of faction.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
maybe that might be a thing. That would be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Just to answer Tara, yeah, we pay 35 pounds a box, i.e. we pay in pounds what you pay in dollars, and pounds are about 1.4 times as much. So yeah, we get ripped off big time.
This is why a lot of people don't buy directly from sellers like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can buy for a lot cheaper from local retailers or online.
I mean, you can also get it imported for cheaper. So that's what's crazy.
Which is actually a real issue.
Anyway,
but yeah.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different subject.
So we got Stark Heroes 3. Now we know that Brynden Tully Outrider Commander. We know that his Vanguard Infiltrator as well, and his Mage Mormont, the Mage Mormont variant, are all going to be in that box. We've kind of been told this. We're told that that's what's coming out in these boxes. What else could we see? We'll see a cavalry model. We'll see one attachment. I'd like to see some
people.
Yeah.
People have speculated. It's a bit wild speculation in my opinion, but it's possible. Brynden, let me remember this right. Brynden now gives the Tully affiliation, but Tully affiliation does nothing unless you're playing Brynden. Right? So we're talking about attachment-based Brynden, and this has led people to a guess that maybe Edmure Tully's coming.
Yep.
And that then Brynden in an Edmure commanded army would then do more with his Tully keyword.
Yep.
Otherwise, there is zero, absolutely no gameplay value at all in the world at all for Brynden as an attachment to give the Tully keyword.
Yeah.
And he does. That has led to speculation that there may be more Tullys.
I'm on board with Edmure. I'm completely on board with Edmure being a commander. It's a bit weird that he's not in the game, so it'll be really interesting to see him return. I also think that we're going to see Karstark. It would make sense to have one of the Karstark. They've just released the Karstark loyalists. Why wouldn't you be releasing a Karstark character alongside that? Doesn't necessarily mean a commander, but who you've got? You've got I can't remember the main bloke's name. The guy who commits treason, the guy who gets killed.
I forget. Actually, that's way back at the start, right?
Forgotten his name. But it would be interesting to see Karstarks coming along. Someone there saying Hoster would seem like a likely NCU from Bruce. So yeah, that would be interesting. Let's head over to the Lannisters, and we see the Castle Rock Honor Guards. I am really
totally at a loss. It feels like red cloaks. As in I don't know what they are if they're not red cloaks. I don't mean in terms of rules. I'm talking in terms of like armament, how they feel. Like maybe elite guardsmen. So we're talking like slow and heavily armored.
Like
maybe
going like the Rose Knight style way, I guess, for away from like wardens to Rose Knights. You're saying like guardsmen to honor guard.
Maybe in the armor style of the Sentinel. Maybe.
That would make sense. Yeah, we see because the ornate armor, Castle Rock. Yeah, that would link across. Maybe the thing is, it's not going to be like a pike type unit. I'd have thought because you've already got halberdiers. I mean, it could be the charging, the coordinated tactics like +3 on charge style spear units rather than the defensive pike units or halberd units. But I don't know. There's not much to go on there, is there? Not much to go on there really at all. It'll be interesting.
Bruce thinks that they're spears again with heavy armor. I mean,
I can picture that. Yeah,
could be spears, heavy armor, and shields. Yeah. All possible. That unit, like, I just other than the Sentinel, who currently just doesn't match any aesthetic. I don't think it can be argued that he matches the Rose Knight. The Red Cloak aesthetic. He that's not a pairing. So it feels like maybe, considering how ornate he is, that looks like maybe a preview of what this unit's aesthetic could be.
It could be, and it would be kind of natural, I think. Could it be the first native Lannister unit to bring horrific visage?
Yeah.
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 Something like that.
Could make Taunt worth
Points.
half a point.
Hey, blackguards exist. Oh wait, what are sentinels again? They give taunt, right? For a point. Never seen them. Never seen them on the table. Anyway, we move on to Lannister Heroes 3. Now, obviously, we've got the mountain that rides. The mountain that rides slash mounted behemoth as the cavalry attachment, who actually in the game right now is the most disappointing attachment in the game, because you pay 2 points for the cavalry variant of an identical attachment that you get for 1 point in infantry. And it's confusing that you pay an extra point for it for apparently no reason. Or is it 2 and 3, or is it one? It's 2 and 3, isn't it? You pay the 2 points for Mad Dog and 3 for the behemoth. That's right. Not 1 and 2. But it's just, I just think it's weird. Like, it's just really strange.
Yeah. Overcosted.
Massively for the cavalry variant, definitely.
So is the Clegane Butcher at 2 points. You know, like their cavalry attachments just overpriced. Don't take them.
But who else could we see in the Lannisters? Well, obviously the big one. It would be really good to see Kevin Lannister. And what's his face? You got Kevin and poor fellow man. Oh, he takes the oath, doesn't he? And he in the show, he's the one who uncovers the plot and blows himself up at the very end. Like, he doesn't want the wildfire to go off. And he finds out underneath the. Oh, that's going to annoy me.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
Well, it's not. That was Loras who finds that out. I honestly can't remember. If anyone knows in chat, let us know. But yeah, Kevin Lannister would be a good one. And Lancel Lannister. Thank you, Vlad. Because Lancel, obviously a massive character within the books, certainly. Really, actually quite important. And obviously his descent into becoming a poor fellow / warrior son, whatever he's supposed to be.
Three different spellings of Lancel in chat there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Vlad was right with the first one. Lancel, CEL. Sorry. But yeah, and also
Podrick.
But also,
Mom. Podrick Gwen.
Ill Payne.
Yeah, but I mean like Podrick Gwen.
Yeah, Podrick, obviously. Podrick is just the best character. So yeah, 100% some great characters there. I appreciate all the comments in chat there trying to get
hero boxes are great. Like, they bring so much to a faction, so much to the game. Like, the game is so there's a reason now why factions like basically have to be released with their first hero box, because you're not viable without one. The factions that have two used to be outperforming those that didn't. Not strictly true anymore, but you know, it's still like a very, very important piece for bringing your whole faction together. And still, like, if you're restricted in what you can buy, then still definitely just like buy your hero characters, because they're so important.
Yeah, I actually think the hero boxes are probably one of the best general buys in the game, because they give you so many options. Units are great and all. Units are fantastic. But as Charles was saying there in chat, like, they're best money for your cost, really. They're best value for money, because you can just mix things up so much. And ultimately, like, if we step away from like the competitive side of the game just for a second, like, yes, we like to have like certain units on the board, and we like things in shiny armor or with certain weapons, whatever. But actually, the thing that we really get driven by most with Game of Thrones is seeing the characters that we like come alive. Like, that was always, and it is, you know, Michael, Chanel, and Fabio do nail that with the fact that that's what they want in the game. They want those characters come alive in the game. And actually, like, it really does, like, I like to see Mance on the table doing well. Like, Mance and Free Folk Commander's a bit less, but like Tyrion, people liked playing Tyrion. Okay, he was a good control commander, but people liked Tyrion because he's Tyrion. Like, it's as simple as that. Rob was the most popular commander because he's Rob.
Yeah, and because they play the way you imagine that they would,
Yeah.
like they do very well with that part of bringing them to life in the rules and making it, impactful in terms of what their background is. Um, they're not they're not always like their power level isn't always right, but they always play in a style, or they're at least designed to. They're designed to play in a style which plays really into what their character is.
Definitely. And Chris is right there. Most starter box units are solid armies. Yeah, most starters, like the stuff you get in the starters, not gonna be the best stuff. It's not gonna be the competitive like tournament winning lists, but actually like it's a really good basis. That one thing I do like with a lot of the starters, barring one, is I feel like you get a good mix of units that actually give you a good variety in the game and give you playable lists.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, like genuinely, I think the Free Folk starter is one of the worst. It was
Yeah,
always good
it is.
value for money, which it is, but actually the army compositions are terrible. Like it's actually
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah. So Starks and Lannisters just continue this trend of like one for one. Like they're just like a pair. They've always have been right from the start. They're a paired faction. Somebody gets something, the other one gets it. Like they're just together. Whether like how Night's Watch and Free Folk are sort of together. Do you know what I mean? Like basically everybody's there in pairs, getting releases at roughly the same rate, and that seems to be how Simon see it. And it seems to me like they're not trying really, really hard to catch the later factions up to the size of the roster that Starks and Lannisters have. They're trying to give everybody continuous releases, which is interesting because at that rate, Lannisters and Starks will always, always have more hero boxes and more units to pick from. When the other factions, like when their roster is big enough and there is enough selection, it doesn't matter so much. It kind of disappears after disappears roughly after like Heroes 2, I think. Once you're talking about like 8-9 commanders to pick from, it just doesn't really matter anymore. As long as you've got a big stable choice of NCUs, big choice of commanders, loads of attachments, loads of units, like what more do you want other than, like you're talking about the real intricacies of balance there and whether or not your faction is currently top tier. But Lannisters and Starks just have a bigger pool to pull from and always have. And it seems like they might always have and continue to have.
To be fair to them, they have done quite well in catching a lot up, like a lot of the other factions up to at least similar levels. I think they're ignore Greyjoys for the moment because they're not. They've only just been released after all. Well, I say just 3 months now. The vast majority of the other factions are looking at around about 8 units. That doesn't mean necessarily 8 good units, just 8 units as a base. Starks and Lannisters are up to 9 now with She-Bears and Red Cloaks. And that's discluding unique solos and unique like Kingsguard, that kind of thing. But yeah, so 8 units is actually quite a stable number that a lot of factions have access to, so that's fine. Baratheons are a little bit weird because of the split faction thing. And we just had a load of Stannis stuff, and now we've got nothing for Renly. It's really weird, but we're due Renly stuff now, and Baratheons are weird.
Yeah, the paired factions sort of like falls apart at Targaryens Baratheons because they are being treated incredibly differently. Yeah. Targaryens, like the only faction out there basically without an attachments box. It's veterans, and then they've got heroes and Mother of Dragons, but they don't have Heroes 2, whereas Renly is Heroes 1 and Heroes 2 is Renly and Stannis, and like those factions are being treated very differently. And we now have Greyjoys out currently by themselves. To see, we'll come on to it, but to see Golden Company before any kind of mention of Martells makes you feel like Martells are a long way off. Like, just at a guess, like total speculation, Martells are way, way far away, which means that like any kind of parity between Greyjoys and Martells in terms of release schedule seems like it'd be really odd.
Yeah, I like Marwyn's comment there. Starks and Lannisters are the main characters. Everything else is NPCs. Yeah, it's true. Everything else is just there to make Lannisters and Starks have storylines. We'll move on to Night's Watch Hero Box 3. And I mean, this is, in case you're not aware, I know that some people may not be aware of this, so I will explain this. The Night's Watch Hero Box 2 discussion is actually the biggest meme outside of like Simon bashing and Asmodee bashing in the game, right?
Yep.
Night's Watch Hero Box 3 was not announced, I'll get that right, was not announced 2 years ago? 3 years ago now? 2.5 years
Longer,
ago?
maybe.
Yeah?
Yeah.
2.5 years ago,
Yeah.
the contents of Night's Watch Hero Box 2 was at Simon Expo, I think, or one of the expos anyway. I don't think it was Simon's Expo. It was it Essen? Actually, I think it might have been Essen. Was the first time they were seen in a glass cabinet with names next to a couple of them,
Yeah.
but nothing else really.
Samwell.
Yep.
Gilly.
Sam, Gilly, Benjen, Colt Hands, and that's one more I think as well.
They're the ones I remember.
Yeah.
Was there? I think so. This is the thing. Like back then, Craster wasn't even out, right? Free
No.
Folk.
Yeah.
Craster, so
yeah.
Craster. I think Craster was the final thing.
Yeah,
Craster was shown, and then it turned like so. This is pre-Free Folk release, I think, if I'm remembering back. Like Free Folk didn't even exist in the game, and they had teased at Night's Watch Hero Box 2. That's how long ago.
And they've not come out. They've not come out, and there's been a massive speculation as to why. Multiple occasions, Michael has literally said we've never formally announced Night's Watch Heroes Box 2, which is just a dumb, stupid thing to say, in my opinion, in many people's opinions, because they basically have. They've shown it at cons. Michael Chanel literally went onto the Discord 6 months ago and said, I'm going to grant you a Christmas wish and say, I'll answer any question. And someone asked him, what's in the Night's Watch Hero Box 2 box? And he said exactly what was in it, and it's the list of 5 characters there. It's a meme to the massive extent that like people are like,
yeah,
why is it not out? I know people who've have Night's Watch Hero Box 2 on pre-order since before COVID.
Yeah.
Like, that's a joke. I'm sorry, but like that's really
crazy.
not okay for consumers, and it makes consumers like obviously lose faith. So to announce Night's Watch Hero Box 3 or not announce it and for it to be here, cool, awesome, but like Night's Watch Hero Box 2, man, like I know there might be some problems with why it can't come out or whatever, but like
Tara says they're on the ship that sank. Change his mind. Well, I'd say there'd probably be some in China. I know you're joking, but like we would have seen them somewhere. Like they wouldn't all have been on the ship. Some would have snuck out. Like they would be out, but there'd be hardly any stock if they'd been sunk in a ship. And nope. Never to be talked about, never to be seen.
No. It's okay because they weren't officially released or announced.
Yeah.
That one.
But nothing's officially announced until like 2 days before it comes out.
Yeah, that's true.
So, or 2 weeks after sometimes.
Yeah. So we see Free Folk Hero Box 3. Now, the differences with Free Folk Hero Box 3, and I know 2 isn't on the site. 2 has actually been announced, kind of. It's been on pre-orders for a while now, Free Folk Hero Box 2. It's still not obviously announced. It's in a similar kind of vein to Night's Watch Hero Box 2, but actually, Free Folk Hero Box 2 has never even been revealed. Like, the contents of it are still, inverted commas, unknown. Now, I say unknown because it is believed that some of the leak that shall not be mentioned gave rise to a discussion of what's in that box. And that may or may not be the case.
We believe that's Giant Commander, right?
We believe it's Giant Commanders, yeah.
Yeah, and you think that's 2? Heroes 2 is Giant Commanders?
Believe so. It could be Hero Box 3. It could be 3. But we believe that Hero Box 2 is a Giant Commander. But that's about it. All we know, really. So yeah. Yeah, so iRobot was at the Gen Con when... It was Gen Con, was it? Where it was first shown. That was Gen Con 2019, I'm sure. 2020. No, I'm pretty sure it was Gen Con 2019, wasn't it?
Might have even been 2018, you know. I'm not even joking. Might have been 2018.
I can't believe that. I can't believe that at all. If it's 2018, no. Jesus Christ. It'd be Gen Con 2021. That's 3 years. Nah, surely not. Surely not.
Time flies.
Yeah.
Time flies when there's no releases.
All right. All right. So that's Free Folk Hero Box 3 anyway. There's not much to say really with that. That could be loads more stuff available.
Yeah.
But now we come to the interesting part: Golden Company Swordsman.
Yeah.
Now, what confuses me about Golden Company, they're gonna obviously have different rules to Stormcrows, because if they're just moneybags related, to like get aggressive buffs by like getting to attack or defensive
We
buffs.
can't have more money bags in the game. Like, come on, like the game. 2021 balance is obsessed with claiming and controlling money bags. Like, can we have a bit more tactics zone parity, please? Like, God, it's too much.
Yeah. And swordsmen, like, they're gonna be 6 points, right? I don't. If they're a 5-point unit, I'm sorry, but like, unless you're really competing with Stormcrow mercenaries, like, you're either gonna be better or you're gonna be worse. Like, you're gonna price one or the other out in the same way that cutthroats have basically been priced out of the game a little bit, because if people want to take a 5-point infantry unit, they're taking Stormcrows most of the time.
Yeah, it is possible. I mean, I'm actually really surprised that Flayed Men and Hedge Knights have managed to find. I think that they've found a lovely spot between the 7 and the 8 point of them. They fill different roles. They are quite different. But that's 2 units at 2 different point costs. We're talking about trying to add another unit into a mix of Cutthroats at 5, Stormcrow Mercs at 5 with adaptive. So that's 5 in inverted commas. Blackguard at 6. Stormcrow Dervishes at 7. So like, you've already got a very full roster of infantry units that do various things. Slotting another unit in and making them feel unique isn't a simple task.
No. A lot of people saying crowns related. I think that would be really good for crowns related. It would make sense to some extent with the Golden Company, obviously in the shows bought by the Lannisters in the season that's crap. And spoilers in case. And Golden Companies actually fight for Lannisters. It would be interesting if they were like looking at crowns. I'm just disappointed if it's more money bags. That's all.
Yeah, obviously. Well, I mean, like, like Mickey used to say, sell swords don't want money. Yeah, but like, I mean, that would be all neutrals. Like, you can't build the entire faction around a single tactic zone just because it represents wealth. Like, like, you just end up with no more rules you can write, nothing new you can create around that. So I do agree massively that crowns would be, at least show-wise, thematic. It would give you natural synergies with Lannisters. It would, it would bring a lot. I say that as a Lannister player.
Letters might not even be a terrible one as well to look at getting some more out of letters, because there's relatively few letter stuff outside of Stannis, some neutrals, and Baratheons, neutrals, and a little bit of Lannisters.
And yeah, Charles Cassier is right that the Golden Company are actually from the Blackfire of the house, right? They're from Blackfire Religion.
They were in the Rebellion.
So they are technically Targaryen descendants.
Yeah. It would be interesting if they were more expensive neutral infantry. I think the neutrals miss out on expensive infantry. They've got the Bolton Bastard Girls at 7, but they don't have access to anything more expensive. It's not cavalry. So an 8-point infantry unit or a 7-point unit can contend with something like Unsullied, because the Golden Company can contend with stuff like Unsullied. That would be interesting. We'll move on though and talk about the other kind of reveal, and this one confuses me, and in a bad way and a good way. Golden Company Crossbowmen. This could well be
on the scale of Lannister Crossbowmen to Night's Watch Crossbowmen.
Are we going to see like a repeat Lannister Crossbowman, but released for everybody at 6 points and is kind of basically a bag of trash, and you're just going to run Stormcrow Archers instead at 6? Or are you going to release the 7-point version of the Crossbowmen, who are like, hey, girl, I'm the sexiest thing you can get this side of Westeros? Because, like, the variety, the difference between the two is insane. Now,
Nothing could be better than Night's Watch crossbowmen at 7.
Night's Watch crossbowmen obviously have a lot of synergies. It's not just them alone which are good; it's the synergies they bring.
Yeah.
But like, I really, really, really do not want to see a neutral unit come out with ready aim release. Sorry, just don't. Just really don't. It's on 6 dice ready aim release. That would be good enough to be played everywhere. Like,
yeah. I mean, crossbowmen seem to have picked up a rule where they reroll to hit at short range. I don't know. They seem to have decided that is the crossbow rule. The crossbow rule is that you sunder and you reroll to hit at short range. I mean, that might be all they end up with.
Apparently.
Yeah. If that's all they end up with, then they're either better or worse than Lannister crossbowmen. Like, so there has to be something differentiating them. They're either hitting on 3s and they're just flat out better than Lannisters, or they're hitting on 4s and I don't know. Like, how do you differentiate that? And that's not just Lannister crossbowmen available to everybody. So, yeah, it needs to be. It's a hard sell for not just. This is my unit, but neutrals.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see where that one goes. I really don't know. And then we move on to the most aggravating thing: Golden Company elephants.
They had to happen.
Yeah, they did. They did. I'm telling you all right now that Golden Company elephants, if they come out, and they are even remotely like war mammoths. I can't imagine they will be, but I actually can imagine they are. Like, I imagine they're going to have, like, howders on, is how I'd imagine the Golden Company elephants. They'd have, like, howder towers with people actually shooting arrows off them. Like...
That would be cool.
It would, actually, and you know what?
That would be cool. A monster unit with a ranged attack.
Yep. That being said...
Lizardman Stegodons when?
Lizardman Stegodons. I'm worried.
Stick a scorpion on the back.
I'm really worried. Yeah, that. Oh my god, no.
It's mammoth. It has mammoth. It has old mammoth trample rules and the new scorpion rules. Oh my.
Nice.
And it costs 6 points.
Just turns. That just turns into. That is really like the King Tiger of A Song of Ice and Fire. That right there. I bought 3. How many did you bring? Oh, I bought 4. Who got the first shot off and who got the first kill? Because they would just die to each other so quickly. But yeah, I'm worried because if this is neutral stuff, which it looks like it is based on the product codes, these are neutrals. They are the SIF 518. That's quite important when you compare with the rest of the neutral stuff being in the 5 category.
5 is the faction.
Yeah, 5 is the faction number.
18 is the box number. Yeah.
Now you can kind of like saying that there are 18. They've said before that you can't just look at the last number and say there are 18. Therefore, there's going to be 18. They've said that sometimes certain stuff doesn't actually get released, but a product number is created. But my point is, like, we're going to see potentially neutrals where they are going to be neutral elephants that may be available in every faction. And this is obviously really great as an interesting thing to do. But man, like, it's the same problem with any beast-related stuff, right? If you gave catapults and scorpions to every faction, it wouldn't actually be that good for the game, I don't think.
No. I don't think so.
Giving elephants to every faction, I think it's fine. If you're running a Golden Company army, you can have elephants. I'm completely fine with that, actually. But, like, just giving, like, an elephant to Starks? Giving an elephant to Greyjoys? What?
The thing about units, very unique units like that in neutrals, is it becomes a huge question of who has their own ways to exploit this that, like, are semi-unintended, right? Like, who has cards in their deck that interact with this in a way that they didn't really see coming, and suddenly this becomes like a massive problem, right? You've already seen that they've really missed the ball with artillery with offal, even though clearly they've been designed to work together. They haven't understood that interaction and then made an incredibly powerful thing. If you make that neutral, you have to consider the way that's going to interact with 7 decks, right? And if any one of them has like something that you didn't see coming, like, for example, just off the top of my head, like I assume actually it's an infantry only unit. I haven't even thought about it, but Greyjoys. What is Dead May Never Die? What if you haven't thought about the fact that this monster can just survive on 1 wound, right? Like, and suddenly you've got a massive problem, yeah, and you just didn't see it coming, and it's unintended consequence. Maybe I'm just absolutely spitballing here. Maybe what is Dead May Never Die says infantry, but if it doesn't, then you suddenly have a problem with this interaction, and so that's what you have to be really careful about when you make very unique neutral units.
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually going to look it up now just so we can find what is Dead May Never Die. No, when a friendly unit is destroyed. It doesn't even have to be Greyjoy.
So, yeah, that's the kind of thing that, and that's just purely the first card off the top of my head that came into my mind. They're the kind of interactions that you have to worry about. And it happens 7 times over, 8 times over when you do it with neutrals. And they've already shown that they've not managed to do it with Mother of Dragons when they build unique units. Mother of Dragons, ridiculously powerful. And Scorpions and, Stone Throwers as artillery inside their own faction with their own commander, which were designed to be used with them, has resulted in one of the largest negative player experiences to date.
I mean, let's just not even shy away from 1.6 Mammoths. 1.6 Mammoths with Free Folk. There's no outside interaction with Free Folk. You've got to remember, there is nothing they have to worry about interacting with when it comes to their own combos, because it's all insular. There are no neutrals, and they even screwed up 1.6 Mammoths with the absolutely ridiculous 9 tramples per turn that you could get off. Charging a Mammoth and then having set for charge and for it to trample through you. You don't even get to attack, and now it's done some damage to you.
Yeah.
Like, those kinds of things, like, I'm not saying they're going to find them all. Actually, they probably won't. That's the kind of thing playtesting should be bringing about and saying, look, this interaction doesn't seem good for the game.
And Charles Garcia says, they might be a piece of crap, right? Like, and they might. But the thing is like, if they are a piece of crap, then it's probably because they've been balanced around that worst possible interaction. And that, like, when you get the worst possible combo deck you can, they're still, dealable with. And so everybody else has to be hindered by the fact that when you don't have that combo, they're just underwhelming. They're just bad.
Yeah.
And that's what makes neutrals so hard. Particularly, like, for me, I will keep saying that neutrals are not a faction up until the day, like, that neutrals aren't 50% of somebody's army. Like, 50% is such a huge amount that, like, you just open the floodgates to why play neutrals when you can have so much of your own faction and still take so much neutrals at the same time. I still think that neutrals shouldn't just be like completely fair game, can play with anything. It should be like Boltons are neutral or Lannister or Stark, and that's what they are. And every neutral unit should list the factions that it can go in, and that would massively reduce your neutral problem. Neutrals would become a faction in themselves, and you'd massively reduce the amount of interactions that you have to look at and worry about and think about when you balance them.
Marwin makes a good point, but it's also a point, relevant, I think. On one hand, you like the idea of War Machine style neutral compacts. Yeah. You want to. There is a lot of what if. Like, that is the whole point of the game. Is it like, what happens if this happened? And that's fine. I actually don't think that that's a massive issue. Having these combinations, these weird and wonderful combinations. The problem is something you always have to think about. If you want the game to be fun and good to play, those interactions should still be balanced in the competitive sense of the game. What people do outside of it, I saw a guy actually this week say, Baratheons versus Night's Watch. The Baratheon player won, and you looked at his army, and it had Rose Knights, Renly Commander, and a Dragonstone Noble. Now, in a competitive sense, that list is obviously not legal. He's not allowed to take that list. And like in some ways, I'm kind of sat there being like, goddamn, like, unfortunately, that's not a legal list. That's not really a very useful result for anyone to look at. But on the flip side, I'm also like, who am I to tell you how to play the models in the game that you've bought? Like, in the end of the day, if you enjoyed
I think
that
that's
game,
Baratheon's best chance, right?
yeah, exactly. If you enjoyed
Baratheon's
that
best
game,
chance currently at all is to just cheat.
if people enjoy the game and that's what they want to play, like, I'm not there to tell them that they shouldn't do that. I think that if they played that game and they really enjoyed it, 100% do it. As far as I'm concerned, do it. But you can't balance around the idea of narrative play, because narrative play is always going to be open to people making their own rules up, like changing things, and that's fine. Now, I like narrative play, but narrative play is not how you need to balance the game. So yeah, we'll park elephants there then, and we'll move on to the Highgarden Pikemen. These were in the leaks.
Yeah.
They've probably changed
Cheap,
since the leaks.
5 points. Did they have set for charge?
No, they had the +1 automatic hit when charging. The other way around.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Just like cheap filler unit. Personally, I didn't look super close at them. Obviously, they're the offensive side to a defensive warden, so like they do fill 2 different roles. I believe they're movement 5 off the top of my head, so they are faster, they're more aggressive. They don't have the 3+ save, so they give you a different dynamic. And like, yeah, they seem viable and fine at that. As a relatively, like, obviously I'm a Lannister main and I'm back playing Lannisters, but a relatively long time Baratheon player, they don't excite me. Like, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah,
I'll buy 2.
And the actual depressing thing is that this is all we've got for Baratheons. Like, I know Stannis has had a load of stuff just get released, but we've got nothing else for Renly. That puts Renly, whenever these come out, that puts Renly at a measly 2 units.
Yeah,
that's all we know of.
But
like,
as Pandemonium says, like, what happened to the Thorn Guard? What happened to the Terror Cavalry? That like, thought those 3 were going to come out together in the same way that Kingsmen, Queensmen, and Lightbringers came out together. I'm quite surprised that it's just the Highgarden Pikemen right now.
That could mean that these things are a lot sooner around the corner, though. With the Pikemen coming out, like, maybe very soon.
I assume that they're next quarter.
Within the next quarter. So we'll see them before December 2021. That would be interesting. And that was it. So there was another.
And Marwin's right. Like, Highgarden. Like, if I could play Highgarden, I would play Highgarden. The reason I play Renly Baratheons is because of Highgarden, and the reason I play Lannisters is because of Highgarden. I would play Highgarden if I could.
And you know what? Narrative play with like a Highgarden armies with a mix of Lannisters and Tyrells from Renly side. That is, I can see that's Carlo's wet dream, really.
We skipped over it, but way back when we were talking about Lannister heroes, somebody mentioned
Marjorie, right?
some Lannister heroes bringing the ability to bring Tyrells into the fold. As obviously, they're effectively together for as long as they are with Renly, so like,
yeah. Obviously, the next thing I want to talk about is something we all know about. It's the faction packs. We know there've been issues. Like, we do know that they had a problem with printing or whatever in China.
Yeah.
But I am...
Faction packs to when?
I am actually kind of confused because...
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned.
We are now... we're at the end of Q2 in the next couple of weeks. Like, literally the end of next week. We've not had Iron Makers released in the UK. We've not had any of the like trappers and things just aren't released in the UK. Some of them are released in some places in the world. There is stuff that's out there, but it seems to me like basically a huge section of stock, which was supposed to be coming out with Greyjoy release, has not hit the shelves in certain places.
Yeah.
for apparently no reason. And the faction packs now are. I don't think they're coming out next week.
No. Yeah, like people are talking about, like at least they gave us the beta app. They gave us the beta app, so that's why this isn't the end of the world. But that's not the end of the world for us. Like here, the people watching this show, by large majority, the people watching this show use the app, use 2021 balance already, are maybe frustrated that they have to print off the cards. I would much rather use nice cards. I'm willing to pay 100 quid to have every army that I have, have their updated deck. I'm all right with it, buy it, please just release it. But there are people out there who aren't playing the game because the new cards aren't out, right? Like they are turning people away with that, and that is still a problem. And I mean, how long has it been now? I think, are we 5 weeks, 6 weeks? And I feel like we were promised that they would come out, that they would release the digital update a few weeks before. I think.
I'm gonna
maybe.
I'm gonna check because I actually do
at
want to know
most,
myself.
I think they said like a month before. Didn't they say? And
I think it was meant to be a month originally.
Yeah, and that date has been and gone. 100%. That date has been and gone. Yep. And there's no mention of it. There's no movement. There's no news. Everybody's, being blinded by some exciting new news. It's really hard to say.
The app was last updated on the 3rd of June, which puts us at 18 days ago from now. But that was the bug fixes.
Yeah.
So if we go back, I think the easiest thing to do is actually just go look at the article from Simon.
Yeah, which Simon just said go and download it now, right?
Was on May 12th. So that is that's a week ago. Sorry, a month ago last week.
5 weeks, right?
So 5, 6 weeks.
5 6 weeks, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Don't forget, they were 100% going to come out in quarter 2, as Mickey says. That was the date that was given a long time ago. So yeah, you got 8 days to do that, as Mickey says. And yeah, people, and it's possible that they're rebalancing the game, like, right?
It might be,
but rebalancing is a continuous process, and it's never going to be just right. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Hard to win.
Yeah, it's problematic because for a lot of players, as we know, in the UK, COVID's over, inverted commas, but COVID's still around, and it's really like they think we're still going to be opening up next month fully. I doubt it, actually. Somewhere in the back of my brain says no, it's not going to happen. Paces have been opening up all over the world. People are playing physically. That's the difference now. People are back to playing games physically. And the app is great, and the printed cards that people have got are great, but it's not enough. Like, there's a product there that people want, and the motivation, people are joining the game. There's a lot of people joining the game, actually. The game is seeing some growth. But the problem is, for every person that joins the game, there's people dropping off because they're just fed up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard at the moment to be excited for person play, because I know that I can't actually just have a tactics deck in my hand that's nice. I have to play with an app, which in our case, me and Carlo, doesn't bother us. We've got the stats app. I use it to play my games entirely, pretty much. So it's not a problem.
I do think it's really telling, though, that so many people assume that the reaction and that people's response, people's belief in the current balance is that it's so bad they're having to redo it. Like, I think that's actually just like really telling that that's what people think is going on. Whether it's true or not, I don't know whether or not it's just more production clusterfuck and they just haven't made them. And it's like, well, if you haven't made them, why did you tell us they were coming out in Q2? Like, you've got this terrible track record of like always just promising things that aren't going to happen. But like, I think that it's just, yeah, for me, it's super telling that people are like, this is so bad they've had to redo it, and that is kind of bad after we were told for such a long time that like this is going to fix stuff, when I believe that it's made things worse.
Yeah. Yeah, and Marwin's right. As much as Marwin likes to meme, Marwin's right. He wants to be able to point to people and say, look, like, buy this with that, and you can play the game, and he can't. You know, it's
Yeah.
cutting short. You know, paraphrasing a little bit. And yeah, it is a pain. We understand what it's like. I mean, we reference our phones for everything anyway, because again, using the stats app and stats website, we just play through the phones anyway. We've got it there anyway. It's not a bother for us. In fact, we really hope that most people get used to doing that with the game. But actually having to refer to everything on there is a bit of a pain. And I know that a lot of people out there don't remember the stats of their cards directly. They don't remember the exact wording on every single card unless they got it printed out. So yeah, that is a problem.
I'm really pleased. I'm really relieved.
Internet play up.
Relieved is the right word. No, you got me now.
You just that was really random. You just died there for me.
I was just saying I'm really relieved, and relieved the word, that the UK tournament scene, which isn't, like, don't forget, like, tournaments are mostly run by like store owners who aren't always like really close to the game, and also are driven by physical sales, right? So if physical cards aren't out, it would have been really easy for tournament and like store owners to be like, well, no, that's not out yet. But like the UK so far, physical tournaments seem to have come to the very great consensus, very relieving consensus, that 2021 balance is out and is current, and tournaments are being played with it. I'm really, really pleased. Otherwise, like, the scene would be all over the place. The tournament scene would be like just falling apart, with like people asking, like, it's already bad enough that people ask like, what is being played. I am a little bit nervous of the first tournament that I turn up, though. There might be like people who are like, wait, what's 2021 balance, right? Like that, that's very much possible. And as long as these cards aren't out, there is a fear that it could kill all competitive play if not everybody's aware that this is current rules. And that is possible for you to not be clued in, or just like for you to be very, very adamant that unreleased cards means that it's not released, and you turn up to a tournament and you're like, oh, I don't have cards. I haven't printed cards. Why would I print cards? They're not released yet. And then the tournament's like, yeah, but they're 21 on balance. And then you just end up with like loads of people being unhappy. And that's the limbo that we still exist in. Like I say, I'm really relieved that the UK doesn't seem to be in like a decision limbo. As far as I can tell, every single tournament, and there are quite a few of them up and down the country starting up in the next few months, they've all come to the decision that 2021 balance is current and that's what we're playing. But I'm nervous that some people will turn up and be very, very disappointed and be like, what the hell is going on? What is this game? Why does your army cost different points to mine? And why do your units all do different things to mine?
Yeah, exactly. And that's just not a nice place for the game to be in. Yeah. That is not a nice place for the game to really be in, to be honest. Because it's just like, I know that the world is full of uncertainty, but there's a difference between uncertainty and like actual just straight up uncertainty, where we know some things or we don't know what we're supposed to be doing, and if players are feeling that they don't know what they're supposed to be doing, that's bad. Whereas not knowing what might come out is different. Like that's a different case of uncertainty. Yeah, no, and you're right, Makista. If only there was a website to help manage tournaments. Except,
Soon trademark.
hang on. Except it doesn't exist because it doesn't manage tournaments. Carlo, where are we at with tournaments? Go on.
Super close. Like, we're testing. I don't want to release it and be broken. There are so many little things. Like, tournaments are actually really easy to do, super easy, up until the point where you realize that people always get stuff wrong and people always want to undo every single thing. So for everything that you do, you have to be able to undo it as well. And that makes things really hard. You have to make sure that like the tournament score doesn't go all crazy when somebody like submits a game and then changes the game and deletes a game. So we're almost there.
Yeah. Cool.
I forgot how many twiddly little buttons there were. I really did think it'd be done by now.
Fair enough. So yeah, we are basically moving into. We spoke about it before the show. We're moving into testing phase. And as we did when we first released the tournaments feature, basically we didn't run the tournament, but there was a tournament that we ran through the site. We will probably run a tournament locally. Myself.
It'll
Carlo.
be out by Saturday, Mickey. Yeah, I'm going to say Wednesday.
Wednesday, Makista. There you go. So you might be able to use it in time for your.
Yeah,
your
if you've got a tournament this weekend, 100%, I'll do it for you, mate.
There you go. He just said that. Can we get? I mean, that's a quote, right? 1 hour, 6 minutes in. 1 hour, 6 minutes in. He said there that 100% it will be done by Wednesday.
Yeah.
For Saturday.
You'll do it. Yeah, you'll have it for the weekend. 100%.
Yeah. So there you go. That should make people happy. Ask me anything about a Song of Ice and Fire stats t-shirts when. I have actually been considering, Marwin, getting some t-shirts done. We'll probably sell them through the NRG website for stats, the merch as well, because obviously it's NRG is part of what we some Lord of the Rings music there. NRG is ultimately what we go through and obviously deal a lot with. If anyone wants to know the NRG merch page, I will quickly stick that in chat for anyone, and it gives anyone a chance to have a little look at it. And yeah, DMC.
Neither of us wearing any NRG merch today.
Mine's in the wash.
It's too hot. It's too hot in the UK. I mostly bought a ton of hoodies, and it's actually really warm.
Mine's in the wash, so you know. I'm not going to sit there and lie to you and say I should have been wearing it. But no, so check out the NRG merch. Obviously, I think that's where Song of Ice and Fire stats t-shirts are going to end up. Okay, you're not buying any t-shirt that doesn't have Carlo's face on it. If we can get things right, we'll actually be releasing a meme shirt as well. And it won't just be myself and Carlo. We'll see if we can get Daryl and Scott in there as well. And Scott will just be an empty face with like a question mark because no one knows what Scott looks like because he's like never on anything.
No.
But no, we'll have a look into that. We'll see what we can do. All right. On that note, we will going to talk about some other stuff. And unfortunately, I couldn't quite get it working before we went live because I don't have the assets quickly to hand, which is a bit of a pain. We're going to talk terrain. That's going to be the kind of like talking point of today, and we're going to talk about stats, obviously.
1 hour 10 in. The talking point for today is
so
episode starts now.
Episode does start now. I just wanted to quickly show us this actually. Today we got sent. I got sent a meme picture by Lockerbury, Nick, who's made a meme. He was going to send this to you, Carlo, but I thought we'd just show it live on Tourney Ground today. Following our discussions about Wendermere and how good he is, and you've got something interesting you're going to tell everyone in a minute about Wendermere, isn't that right? There we go. It's not great quality, obviously.
Oh, yes.
There you go.
Mickey's classic quotation.
I didn't say this is bad, but...
Insert 10 minutes of Mickey telling you why he thinks it's bad.
There we go. I like the crow that says, "Where is Carlo?" But yeah, so there we go. Thanks.
What was the reveal? I actually forget. Was it that I took a quick look at the numbers and Wendermere is the lowest rated thing in all of Greyjoys?
Yes.
Right?
That is right, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was that. I think did the Hollow Reavers come out lower?
I think. Well, I think
Um,
Wendemir's the lowest rated NCU, and
yeah, Wendemir's lowest
Reapers.
NCU, Hollow Reavers are one of the lowest rated units in the entire game.
Yeah.
Ironborn Trappers turns out are one of the highest rated units in the entire game. Well, I mean, like behind all of Night's Watch, but like you know,
They came in at number.
like
Was it number 18?
relatively so.
Number 18 was the highest rated, which is actually
Great
quite a high
unit.
rating, but for Trappers at number 18,
Yeah.
pretty big. Just remind us, Carlo, what were the top three? Just the top three units.
Top three are conscripts, crossbowman, and watch captain. Right? Yeah, I think it actually goes conscripts, watch captain, crossbowman in that order.
Yeah, the three Night's Watch and Red Cloaks and Poor Fellas are up there as well, aren't they? As the other two.
Red Cloaks come in at about 7 or 8. Flayed Men come in at 7 or 8. It's either Red Cloaks then Flayed Men, or Flayed Men then Red Cloaks. And Poor Fellows coming in at about 12 or something like that. Yeah. And then all the rest are on Night's Watch units and NCUs and stuff like that. Like JO's in there. Veterans of the Watcher in there, just all sorts of stuff. So it's quite interesting. Like, I do think it's working really well. It will be really good when it'll come up live when tournaments go live. It's already ready. I think it's accurately representing the top. As always, the stats much better represent the top than they do the bottom. But I think that the top's looking really, really good and interesting, and I wonder one day, I say one day, sometime soon, we may be able to use it as some kind of complete comp score, if that's the way people want to go, as like an extra step beyond ELO tournaments. Like, it will score your entire list, and you will say, like, you can only play a plus 100 total list, for example, and every unit you add is going to bring that score up. So you can't just be spamming the good stuff. It'll be, maybe, we'll see that ELO tournaments generally were relatively well received. There is more we can do. We can do more than just say, all right, well, I'm just going to take this top list and swap a commander out and still basically have a top list.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. So let's have a look at the faction rankings then, because we should touch on this before moving on to terrain. We see Night's Watch at 50 points. Now, I think this is there's a slight decrease from where they have been previously.
It's down from 60. They were up at 60. They dropped down to about 48. They took a few losses. Most of those points seem to go to Lannister. Lannister are actually sitting slightly negative. Night's Watch plus 50. They've been relatively stable there for a while now. Actually, I did think and do think that they will go higher. But plus 50s are already a decent amount for a faction as a whole.
Yeah. Does this play into the fact that you changed the faction rating slightly? So we're not going to see like the Stark plus 100, like the likes of a plus 100 faction are actually quite unlikely.
Yeah, the factions don't move as fast as they used to. It takes more data now because we get some more submissions these days than we used to get. A long time ago, like halfway through the last edition, I actually slowed the rate at things that factions move, but not players. I am going to introduce something new though soon to kind of introduce a factor based on their play rate as well. But we'll see how that goes. I need to do that. That's after
everything else,
after tournaments, after profiles, after all the crap stuff. I'll actually do some interesting stuff with data.
We've talked about it before, haven't we? Like a decay rate in terms of like if things aren't being picked often. They need to.
Yeah, exactly. That'll help. That'll help fix the problem
neutral.
of all the unrated stuff in the middle, which is like they just never get played because they're the worst things in the game, not because they are losing or winning or anything like that. They're just never played.
Yeah. All right then. So we see Night's Watch up at 50, and we see Baratheon at Starks. They're swapping every like couple of days, really, but they're basically minus. They fluctuate. It's about minus 40, minus 30. That kind of arc. These two just aren't in the running. They've got builds, they've got lists. They can do well into the other bottom three, Free Folk, Greyjoys, and Neutrals. But really, Baratheons and Starks just don't have answers for the top three at all. They just don't. What's actually more interesting when we look at Targaryens, yet again, the spread is becoming even more ridiculous for Targaryen. By the way, Othel's at 100 points now, pretty much.
Yeah.
First commander in 2021 to break the 100 barrier. Jon Snow at 65. Vargo is not at 55. He's just like he won one game or something like that, and that's it. He's basically just the faction ranking. Same you'll notice with Ramsay's not been played, Dario's not been played.
That's the thing. That's the thing that we need to solve. The commanders who are rated based on being unplayed, as opposed to based on real results.
If you see your commander with exactly the same rating as the faction, it means it's got 0 games added to it. Like Donald Noy, although his faction ranking is slightly different, he will have had games played because it's slightly different. You only can be like literally 0.1 difference means you've been played, but like a difference that's exactly.
Funny if you click on that and see how many times have been played. Coming soon, trademark.
But we see all the Night's Watch stuff there at the top, obviously, and ironically, Dario Naharis, Stormcrow Captain, is the best Targaryen commander. Now, did you fix it? So, have you got the fix in there so it tells you if that's the neutral version or the Targaryen version?
You say fix, like I said I was going to do that. You say I'm going to do that. No, there's old Dario.
I'm pretty
who
sure
knows which one's which?
This is the neutral one, I'm pretty sure. This is the neutral one. The reason I know that is because the neutral one isn't played very often, whereas the non-neutral one is played a lot. The Targaryen one, and I've no doubt is getting losses. But it's interesting because Targaryens have got an interesting spread. They've got Barristan up there, Daenerys is up there, the both versions. Drogo's up there, but then you drop down towards Dario Naharis. Grey Worm is doing really badly internally in Targs. He's like the worst commander you can pretty much bring. Maybe Belwas should be worse, but ultimately I don't think many people play Belwas. But yeah, not great. Not great for Targs really seeing that, but it's a good spread nonetheless. What's more interesting is that Gregor Clegane the Mountain is just absolutely storming it ahead for Lannisters.
Yeah, it was Tywin for a little while, and Gregor was sitting in around the middle of the pack for the Lannisters, but Gregor's had a strong showing recently and is possibly the reason why they've bounced back up a bit. I do think that Gregor, the absence of old Varys, who was his nemesis, combined with the fact that he plays well with Red Cloaks, and he just has a great place in the 2-list dynamic, in my opinion, right now. He does make up a good part of what is a Lannister 2-list build. Can he fight Mother of Dragons? That's the question on my mind.
It's an interesting thing. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. I don't know the answer to that. Not played Mother of Dragons in 2021 yet too much. Don't have to think about it. Tyrion's up there. Tywin's dropped slightly down. The High Sparrow, and then you got the kind of like unplayed commanders. And then you get like a really weird thing because Jaime Lannister is like 10 points lower than the rest of the faction. Like, he's just a straight up outlier.
Jaime's seeing play, but not winning games. The classic, the classic overrated combo.
Just not doing well. So yeah, we do see the lurkings of Free Folk. Obviously, Mance getting in at number 23 at plus 14
significantly rating. Above the rest of the faction, says that he's actually doing all right.
Go back and look at our faction review of Free Folk when they did the visions, and like when we talk about the whole faction thing, go back and watch that stuff, because every, I think, half decent Free Folk player said Mance is the best commander. Mance will be the best commander. It will come out as top. As it currently stands, we are all predicting that, and that is correct.
Yeah. Just since we're on the topic, to answer Charles. So the faction and the commander rating is combined on the rankings because that is the way it works. That is the number that it uses to calculate what your rating is for the game, and effectively that is how powerful the commander is, right? If we don't include the power of the faction, then the number just represents. So a commander in isolation represents how powerful they are within the faction, and the faction represents how powerful the faction is overall against other factions. When you combine the two together, you see how powerful a commander is in total, and how much impact they're having on the game. Ish. The problem being that it can't accurately predict a commander who never sees play inside of a particular faction, right? So then it just assumes that you're roughly in the middle of that pack. But it's not fair to say that Vargo in neutral is the same as Vargo in Night's Watch. Vargo in Night's Watch is considered to be, roughly speaking, as powerful as Night's Watch are powerful. And that's what we end up with. And Night's Watch as an individual faction are so much more powerful than every other faction that even if your commander isn't good in Night's Watch, it still assumes that you're the best.
Yeah.
That will separate as more results come in. More data always makes things better. Like, it's like if you submit more data, it will be better. It will take time. Don't forget that there were 5,000 results before the reset of the data. So the system is still finding its feet, but it knows what's really, really winning, and that's awful. And it knows it's starting to get an idea of who the most powerful commanders in each faction are. It's still trying to rate all the middle ones because it just doesn't get as much data. Like, it's very, very cut and dry. People play some commanders and they don't play others.
Waiting for Virtue is right as well. 60% of the time it works every time. Yeah, the site, like as it stands right now, is working like fully as intended. The problem is that without the data to back it up, it does mean that everything's like transient, right? If you see something and you go, oh look, it's the best commander, or the worst commander at the moment, like give it a couple of weeks, it's probably not true anymore. What we can start to say though is probably, as Carlo was saying there, the best commanders for each faction are probably borderline correct now, because they're simply just being played more and they're picking up wins more often. Like, the reason they're being picked more is people think they're good, they're playing games, and they're winning. Like, generally speaking, when we talk about data, when people think something's good and it's not, they get picked a lot, but they still lose a lot, so they drop down. This was the old Stannis problem, the old Renly problem, is that Tywin problem, right? Everyone picked them all the time because they thought they were good, and they lost all the time because they weren't good, and they plummeted down to the bottom of the barrel. The simple thing is, like, good stuff that's being picked and is winning is probably good stuff.
Like I say, there will be a fix coming in. Look for something roughly around the end of the month. It would be a script which I ran like once a month to depreciate all the things that haven't been played that month. So basically everything that's getting ignored and not getting played would slowly slip down to the bottom. And if people use the site in the correct way, I always say that, the correct way, that should make them want to play those things. When something has a really low rating, you should be like, I want to play that. Because when something has a low rating, it's easy place for you to show that you're a good player. That's what it's about. Showing that you can, play against the meta. You can outdo the meta by using the undervalued stuff and show that it's actually good.
Yeah, definitely. So we will go through the Weeper coming in. What it's worth, Free Folk Commanders, Mance is obviously good. I actually kind of like the Weeper. He's got some play. I think that there's the Harmer as well, and Rattleshirt not doing terribly. We start to see neutrals coming in, and Greyjoys start to get a bit of a mix in there. The bulk of the Greyjoys coming out there, then the remaining Free Folk. Then we've got the rest of the Stannis lot, the rest of the Baratheons, and the rest of the Starks, and they are literally just like the bottom end of the scale because of the factions being so
Great
poorly.
Great John, last place, I think. There he is.
Minus 64. Great John is not doing well.
He's in that classic place. People look at him, they think he's good, they play him, he loses. Therefore, he loses rating.
Yep. Eddard's down there. Andrew's down there. Stannis.
All the people who it's all the commanders that people think are good, but they're inside of a bad faction, and the faction just isn't winning anywhere near as much as it should be.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing. Like the best commanders you're running for, like Baratheons now or Starks, Loras, like One True King, Eldon. I think everyone's aware of Eldon. Tourney, Brynden Outrider Commander is the best rated Stark commander. Vargo Hoat is one of the best rated Stark commanders.
Yeah.
And we just like sad.
Wah, wah.
Wah, 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 wah.
To Joachim, yes. So the commander ELO that you see on the power rankings page already has the commander and the faction combined. That is the number that you effectively use. That is the number that you are playing with. That is the ELO rating change that gets made to your rating, and is the effective overall ranking of your list.
If anyone has any questions about that, I can always bring the Excel spreadsheet back up that will do the calculation. It doesn't tell us won't tell you the ranking change, but you can kind of guess. The exact rating change is decided on a few factors. So yeah, but if anyone has got questions about that, let us know, because we can show that again. We are going to be making surprise to Carlo, by the way. We're going to be remaking a lot of how the site works and videos around how the site functions and things like that once the site is actually released, so that can go live and people can play around with it and actually watch content. We're going to go through and explain ELO using graphs. We're going to use the actual numbers on the site and go, right, if this happens, this happens. If this happens, this happens. And you very much get a feel for it that way. Just so if anyone's got any questions regarding that or wants to see how it actually works, it's going to be there.
The site will never be released, Mickey. The site will never be finished.
I know. I know. I'm aware. But you know what I mean when I say that.
And to Rusty, yeah, it's coming. When faction and commander profiles return, it'll recalculate all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's it shouldn't
Wednesday,
take it too
right?
long. Tournaments are the big thing that's holding everything up, but it seems that the site can't exist without tournaments.
It's Wednesday that's happening, right?
People love tournaments.
Right. Okay, I'll bring this back up because I can. We've got time, and let's face it, it makes sense, I think. So, if anyone is wondering, let's see how this goes. Oh, far too big. I'll just minimize this. This is kind of like a brief section on calculating the odds and things like that. If anyone is interested, we will do some literal live calculations, just so you know how it works roughly, right? So
no, bartender, you didn't miss the chat about terrain. Mickey got sidetracked by some maths, and we haven't got onto after an hour and a half the topic for today's chat.
Of course. We're going to spend about 5 minutes on it, aren't we? Right, so let's just take 2 players at 1500 rating. Yep. I'm going to call them player A and... Oh, wait. I have to turn validation off. Sorry, I'm not going to bother. Factions, let's say we've got Stark, which are at minus what we got at the moment. Minus
32.
32, wasn't it? Yeah. And let's say we've got Baratheons on the next one. What are we calling Baratheons at the moment? Not minus 69.
Minus 35.
Minus 35. And then let's choose some commanders. So let's go for... let's just make it easy. Let's say Ramsay. I'll just use. Oh, why not? We'll use the top commanders. We'll use Loras at minus 23 and Stannis at minus 24. So minus 23 and minus 24. That's Loras and Stannis. Fine. And we'll go for... Who do you want to go for on the Starks? Who do you want to go for on the Starks?
Let's have old school Howland Rob.
Howland Rob. So Howland's at minus 32. So let's go for Howland at minus 32. I'm using not the decimal point versions because I can't be asked typing them in. And Rob, where are we at, Rob? He is at minus 33. So these are all similar kind of numbers.
And just a reminder, guys, that's minus 33, not minus 33,000.
Yes.
just a public service announcement again from last week.
Yeah.
Somebody says, like, why is something 70,000? Just say it's 70, mate. 70. Just correct them.
Yeah. So I've got two graphs here because some people care about like their win rate versus the opponent's win rate. So this kind of like, I'll explain when we get there. So, ciao. We see here, this is the bit we care about, the effective win rates. All right. This is how the site does its predictions, roughly speaking. Okay. It goes and says, player A, this is for player A's chance to win with the Howland into Loras matchup is 48 point, call it 49%. Right. The chance to win with the Rob is slightly behind. Their chance to win Howland into Stannis is at closer to 49%. They're all very similar because the ratings are so similar.
I was going to say this would have been better if you picked some commanders that were like different rated instead of everything being almost identically rated.
Right. I'm just going to make the numbers up. Let's say it's old Howland and Rob.
Oh,
there we go.
Old Rob had 1,000.
Yeah, literally. The factions don't actually make any difference in these calculations. So here we go.
Yeah, roughly speaking, they're old rankings.
Yeah. So Howland, old Howland into new Loras, well, even old Loras was about the same, to be honest, would be a 65% win rate, we reckon, for the Howland player. That's a win probability, right? That's a prediction that the site makes. It's 65%. Now, without going into too much detail, we look at the. You can look at this in a distribution. 65%. We're talking about here. That's an ELO difference of approximately 120. About 120, 130. That means that player is likely to win that game. If that player loses, they go against the trend. They go against the predicted value. Therefore, they lose more ELO. Okay. Basically, the numbers that you care about is 25. 25 is the standard win amount that you're probably going to get. If it's like a standard
if you're equally ranked. If you're equally rated and it's a crushing win, it's plus minus 25. Yeah.
And
if it's a real upset victory, that could be like as much as plus minus 40 points. If that's just like you just trashing on somebody who's way better, who you're way higher rated than, you're talking like 10 or 5 points for a crushing win. Yeah. That's how the site penalizes you. If you just keep using the powerful stuff, you're high rated and you're beating up on crap players, it doesn't do anything for you. You only win like 5 points. And if you lose, you're going to lose like 40 points. So you're going to have to crush people. You're going to have to win 8 times out of 9. Otherwise, you're not actually going to go anywhere. And that's how things level out.
Player ELO is exactly the same for all intents and purposes. The player ELO is identical to the the commander ELOs, right? It's identical. So if I increase this statistic by 100, you'll notice that changes by the win rates. If I drop Howland by 100 and set him to 0, you'll notice he goes back to exactly the same win rates as he was before. Yeah.
So the rating that you see on a commander and a faction is the same as the difference in two people's rating. So when somebody's 1600 rated, that means that they're as much better than a 1500 rated player, than a commander, which is 100 rated, is better than a 0 rated commander. Somebody who's 1600 is roughly equivalent to as good as Othel is good.
Yeah. Compared to an average player.
That player plays Othel, they're actually back like a 1700 rated player. And when they play somebody who's 1500 not using anything, they're 200 ELO higher. And the system's just like, that's a very, very likely win for the Othel high rated player. I'm not going to give you any points for it. It's a predictable result. It's not learning anything new. You're not breaking the trend. It's all about the most interesting results, the best thing you can do, on the site is take your own rating and your opponent's rating and then try and pick, roughly speaking, commanders that bring your ratings to almost the same point. And that is how you get the most interesting game. That's how you get the most balanced game. And that's how you get the biggest swing in player rankings as well. That's how you generate the most information, because the result is unpredictable as far as the site's concerned, because it's nearly 50-50. When the site thinks that a game is very predictable.
Yes.
So yes. To Bartender, it just takes your rating and then applies the factor that is the plus or the minus. That's why commanders go plus minus and factions go plus minus. It applies the plus minus to you based on what commander you've picked.
So, for example, this one here would be 1600 plus. I've set the commanders to be the same. So 1600 plus 100 for each. Put them at 1700, regardless of which one they pick. This one is picked not Othel. So any other commander would be 1500 minus 50, regardless of which one they picked. So this person would be rated 1700. This person would be rated 1450 for that particular game. And that's how the stats and the ELO changes will be calculated. This ELO change, if the Othel player wins, you're talking maybe 10 to 15 point change probably.
10.
Yeah.
You have an 80% chance to win, so it's 10 to the 25 factor.
Yeah. And then
we're pretty maths deep, Mickey. Why?
We are, I know, right? But people love it. We've still got 43 viewers, so solid. We're explaining
people love it? On genuine question. Are people interested in this stuff? Like, I assume you're not. This is why I don't talk about it. Like, I assume you're not interested in this.
If they're still here, that's all that matters. But no, if you are interested in this, we'll talk about more maths, because me and Carlo can talk about maths literally all day. So yeah.
And Charles, player ELO could be centered around 0. Yeah. It's actually an arbitrary number. Traditionally, it begins at 1500. And honestly, it's just about perception. People don't want to be negatively ranked. People don't want to be minus. Yeah. And that's all it is. And to be honest, it's the same reason why lots of people say that, like, you should hide the ratings and give people like call them gold or call them Kingsguard or call them something else. It's just because people don't like to see their number and be judged by their number, even though there's no difference to calling it gold.
Hey, like, I know that this is only like a selection of some of the players, not everyone who's listening. But yeah.
People care. All right.
Loads of people
Maybe
care. Terra.
Yeah, go on, Mickey. Do a video on it, Mickey.
Oh, I will do. Don't worry. Terra is the only one who doesn't. So for Terra, just for you, we'll move on to terrain. So Terra's been here for ages. I can't complain. Terra's a great guy. So we're going to talk about terrain, right? And for this, I am actually going to have to try and get the rules up. God forbid. Actually, I've got them all saved on a tab.
I have no idea what this topic is about.
Well, we're going to talk.
That's not you though, but like.
When do you know anything ever?
No.
Name one thing you know. Go on. I'll wait.
I know who's the highest rated and who's the lowest rated.
ELO commanders, yeah. The ELO, ELO. That's what you're saying, basically. You know, coding and ELO. Carlo really has a slow, boring life nowadays. That's harsh. Plays frisbee too. Right. Exciting times. We're going to actually refer to the rulebook. God forbid us refer to the rulebook, because usually when we refer to the rulebook on here, it's either to prove Carlo wrong, or because there's been a discussion that we need to actually find an answer to. So, the rulebook. We're going to go through terrain. We are going to look at keywords, and we're going to talk about like how terrain can be used. I was going to bring up some nice graphics showing about how you could use terrain on different game modes and things like that, but alas, I haven't got it working just yet. So, what we're going to talk about is to create terrain itself, and I want Carlo, I specifically want your thoughts. I know you haven't played that much, but I think terrain has massively changed the way that A Song of Ice and Fire is played at the moment. Because actually it can be very, you used the word last night when we were talking about it, polarizing. So, we'll start off with forests. It is the terrain pick of the meta, it seems.
Yeah.
maybe it's not doing so great. What do you think about this idea of cover as a key word and what forests are offering?
So I don't like cover because of, roughly speaking, the way line of sight works, right? So what cover is doing is cover is saying you can't draw line of sight through this or into this from the outside. But what is actually happening, because forests aren't that big by comparison to a base tray base, it is very hard for not a single part of your tray to be sticking out a position that your opponent can then draw just the tiniest line of sight. So if you can draw line of sight at any angle to any point of the tray, and specifically that doesn't have to be the point at which you're measuring 12 inches either, that doesn't have to be within range. Range and line of sight are two separate requirements to make a ranged attack. You can still make a shot. So for a lot of times, the forest itself isn't actually denying shooting. The only things where it seems to me that it actually really favors a mobile unit inside of the forest, right? The thing that I've seen take most advantage of it are the Dothraki. I want to say Outriders, but that's not the right word. Is it Outriders?
Yeah,
Screamers,
Dothraki
Outriders.
yeah.
Outriders.
Yeah.
The Dothraki Outriders, being maneuverable enough, can effectively manipulate their position to get themselves into a place where they can't be seen at any given time, but can shoot out.
Yeah.
The other thing that is able to do it is build a crossbowman, because they can take that extra maneuver with their captain, bring themselves into range. They can take an extra turn. They position themselves in a place where they can't be seen, but they can see out. And I really don't like that dual mechanic of, I'm in a forest, I can see out, I can shoot you, you can't shoot me. I much preferred it when it was the flat -1 of just like, this is worse for everybody.
Yeah.
I feel like they're not helping people generically get across the board. They're just creating real like gotcha moments of like, I am or aren't seen.
Yeah. So this is ultimately the problem here. This is badly drawn, obviously. This is also how we're going to be doing things in the future. So hopefully, when we talk about tactics and stuff,
Always badly drawn.
Always badly drawn, right? The problem is like basically the line of sight to see this terribly is you're talking like there to at most here. Like that's your line of sight to see this object, roughly speaking. And if you're not in this like red section, I'm coloring in there nicely, you literally can't see these bowmen. And if you think about it, where's their line of sight? Well, their line of sight is this green area here. This is what they can shoot at. And so they're actually a massive threat. And this is using Greyjoy bowmen in this particular example, but this could be anything. It doesn't actually matter.
Could even be Lannister crossbowmen.
Yeah. No, because Lannister crossbowmen don't see the table.
I'll take the bowman over the Lannister crossbowman, please.
Like this is obviously an issue for cover as a rule. And the stupid thing that the way like, and I know people talk about like the games being gamey, but this is where you get problems, because that there can all of a sudden be seen from basically anywhere.
Yeah. So millimeter. So this is the thing I hate about it. Millimeter distances are again going back to that word of like polarized between can be shot and can't be shot. It's not like, I just feel like I really wish there was some kind of, can you see 50% of a facing? Can you see 50% of an edge, or can you see 50% of the base or something, which would make things better? And I just flat out believe that if I can see you, you should be able to see me. Like, I do not believe that a unit in a forest should be able to see something out of it and not be seen back.
Yeah.
In the forest should gain some kind of help, some kind of save, but it shouldn't just be not seen. You can see things when they're shooting you. Like, that's a blanket rule for all games.
Reciprocal line of sight is a thing that I love. Now, when I say reciprocal, if I can see you, and you're aimed towards me, like if we're facing each other, you should be able to see me. Reciprocal line of sight like that is a core aspect of games. At best, you could argue this is trying to emulate the idea of being hidden like an ambush, but it's not good. Like, it's not a good mechanic for the game, in my opinion, because it's problematic. You can't actually do it with this particular forest at this angle, but it's possible as well if we just take these aside for a second. With certain of these angles, like if you position it like here, it's possible with bowmen to sit at this angle here, which makes it impossible to see it from anything over on this side of the board. Literally impossible for it to be seen from anywhere over here. And yet, nothing can get within an inch to see it over here.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing you can do is charge it.
Yeah. And to Rusty, when I first read the rules, I actually also believed and assumed that it meant into, like, I'm on one side of it and you're on the other side of it. We can't see into it and out of it. Neither of us can see each other. But the consensus very much seems to be that if I'm in it, I can see out of it. But you can't see into it, which I just don't like. I'm not a fan of it. The saving grace, the only thing that makes them not absolutely destroying the game right now is that charges ignore it. Like, thank God it's just a shooting requirement, and it's not like you can't see into forests. Otherwise, you just wouldn't be able to charge anything. People would just hide in forests continuously. But yes, dragons, small solos are making great use of it because they can fit 100% inside it, which means that they can't be shot by anybody. And yeah, and it comes back to Scorpions making a mockery of those rules by then just saying, "Well, I can shoot anything."
Yeah,
and
definitely.
And yeah, Weasel mentions, yes, you can charge the units, but it does give fortified. So it's not great. It's not a great charge because you're giving them +1 save.
Yeah, and also if they've got set for charge. Anyway, or ready aim shoot, ready aim release. Yeah, it's weird. The mechanic is weird. Obviously, with cover, it's a very strange mechanic there. 48 viewers. Wow, people love this stuff. I tell you.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of New Forests, but they are so important to so many matchups. I just think that the way they work with very precise movements, very precise do or don't have line of sight, very precise positioning, it's slowing the game down, and I'm not a fan.
Yeah, cool. Weirwoods haven't changed. Is there any? I mean, you liked Weirwoods before, right? From a thematic point of view. The thing is with Weirwoods, it's basically like deploying an open terrain piece. Like, there is no terrain here except you get +1 Weirwood, or +1 morale. Decision on Weirwood trees? Do you think they're still good in the game?
So corpse piles are a lot less common. So because which one did they lose? They lost rough, right? Yeah. Corpse piles lost rough, so they're not such a go-to of like tons of armies, and that means that Weirwoods aren't a natural way to just counter it, which means that I think that Weirwoods are a little less common. I think that Weirwoods are pretty useful. They're odd because they have a thing which is like they don't slow anything down, so it feels like they make the game more aggressive, but they slow down panic-based damage, so then they're sort of making the game less aggressive. We got this weird thing. I do think it's interesting that they only have the one inspiring keyword, whereas pretty much everything else brings 2 keywords and kind of interacts with movement in some way, and they're just the +1. Just as an aside on them and corpse piles, I saw a discussion on Facebook the other day about whether or not they stack. They absolutely do not stack. 100%. They are keywords. You can only have one inspiring. I think everybody on TTS has known that for the past year and a half. some new people to the game, or new people to the Facebook groups, or new people to competitive play or something have started asking about it. 100%, the community is an absolute 100% agreement that those keywords do not stack. 2 weirwoods within 6 inches of you still only provide a +1.
Yep. Just touching on the forest back in there, just to seeing Bartender's comment. Look, preferred a malice to shooting on negative attack rerolls. What we discussed actually with forests last night is we'd have liked to seen forests have a negative for cavalry. Cavalry maneuver style like things, like even if it's just -1 move or something, like, or even like a dangerous light where they took like 1 or 2 wounds for moving through it. Make it a punishment at least to stop these things like doing these weird maneuvers around it constantly. Still doesn't solve the watch captain problem, but it's something. It's something to just change the way that the game is working.
Exactly. Forests are famously a problem for cavalry. Famously a problem for charging cavalry, particularly. Even if it was dangerous to cavalry on a charge or something like that, they're currently the people who are using it the best because of their maneuver ability gets them into the line of sight arcs that they want more than anybody else. And that's a problem. Thematically, that's a problem because they shouldn't like forests. The old stupid never fight Dothraki on an open field. Honestly, it's never fight Dothraki in a forest is actually the current problem. Yeah. Do not fight Dothraki in a heavily wooded forest. That's a bad battlefield.
You know what's hilarious? I played a game the other week actually about this. Howland into Dothraki. If you play Howland Commander, what you do is you put forests on the board because they're probably going to put forests on the board if they're not clever, and you just absolutely ruin Dothraki when you're like, oh yeah, you see that forest this turn? By the way, I'm making it dangerous.
It's
and
dangerous.
They cry because they can't often get out of it in one move if they're not careful, if the way they're positioned. So they're like, yeah, if you want to do your free cavalry move and then do anything else, you're taking 2d3 plus 2 wounds.
Yeah.
That shuts down things for turns, honestly.
And Craig's absolutely right. It was a glorious cavalry charge through the forest in Gladiator. How could I possibly forget?
I know, right? Great film, by the way. One of my favorite films ever made. Anyway, corpse piles, hindering and horrific, losing the rough. Pretty sad. You do see them less. You're starting to see them more. I think I use corpse piles loads when I play Free Folk. Because -1 to morale checks and things like that is just so useful when you're playing Free Folk at the moment. I'm going to tell you that Free Folk are, outside of Lannisters perhaps, Free Folk are one of the best panic damage factions in the game.
It's there's too many is the negative debuff card, right? Yeah. There's too many since the changes to not having to have 2 more ranks than your opponent is a savage card. It makes Hear Me Roar look like child's play. There's too many plus a vicious keyword is whoa. That is, you can't throw out as many big continuous panic checks as Lannisters can, but Free Folk are a pretty panic based army right now.
So just to give you an idea, I made an attack with like Follows a Bone with Rattleshot, or to be honest, anything with like Intimidating Presence. Get it on the Champions of Bone for a point. That's a -3 check. There's a Vicious Intimidating Presence, +1 wound. -4 check for Corpse Pile. If you're in a flank, there's -5. There's too many. There's -8 potentially. You can make a 5 morale
with +4 wounds, right?
+4
+3
wounds
for there's too many. +1 for there's too many. +1 for Intimidating Presence.
Yeah, so 4 wounds plus a D3, so 5 wounds minimum. You can do that, and just to point out, that means that a unit with 5 morale or higher auto fails. They just auto fail, unless they've got a card that says they auto pass, which is hilarious that those things exist. Or a 4 morale, 3 morale units saving on 12s and 11s. You can, I mean, it's not quite possible because of other stuff, reasons why, but like dragons, you can make a dragon legitimately take a -8 panic test and have to save a panic test with a minimum of 5 wounds.
Mm-hmm.
You can do one
I
wound to a
almost definitely
giant.
die.
You can do one wound to a dragon, and make it have to do a panic test on a 10. And if it's panicked, almost certainly going to fail.
Yep.
Like,
But I mean, that's not corpse pile. That's
no, it's not. But like, there are other
but,
things involved there. But the thing is, corpse
but
piles enable it
what's
more.
well, yeah, what's really important about corpse piles and weirwoods and people of course they labor on the 1 or 2 times in a game when the +1 or -1 makes the test pass or fail. What you have to look at is whether or not across the board you're trying to roughly improve the rate at which people fail or roughly improve the rate at which they pass. And if you just play the margins on those pieces, they will have quite a big impact across the game, across the averages, improving. If obviously me particularly, but Mickey as well, are very mathematical players. When you look at the odds of you forcing your opponent to pass or fail, that can be hugely swung by a +1, -1. So whether or not you're putting down weirwoods or putting down corpse piles can have a big effect on that. Horrific is still exactly the same word. Hindering, now very different. It's that auto loss of
Yep.
your rerolls on the charge, which gives much more impact to those attachments which allow rerolls. But I'm not seeing them have huge play myself. I think that people are just sucking it up. They're just going through them if they have to, charging without them, and it's just making combat a lot more grindy. Is what the new hindering word has done. It's made it a lot less of just like, hey, here's a charge and you're dead. But
I
there are still units out there that do it, like you just said, with that
Yeah.
massive extra wound panic checks.
I'll be honest with you, I don't charge through corpse piles that much anymore unless I know that the charge is important to make. Because with free folk, certainly, like, it's different with other factions, but with free folk, in on 4s, like, I'm probably not going to do any damage on 6 dice hitting on 4s. Not anything really to talk about. So I don't charge through corpse piles. I just stand there and go, right, you can charge me, because the chances
Yeah.
are you won't do much damage to me either. And I might lose half a unit, but you're not going to one-shot me. Like, it's just not a thing that you'll one-shot me with most units. So I don't care. And then at least you'll be in the position I want you to give, or want you to be in. Which makes me laugh that Taunt exists, because I just did exactly what I wanted to achieve without Taunt. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. Bogs, bringing hindering, of course, again, and rough this time. Rough with the -1 movement. They're not popular.
They have more use and see more play now that corpse piles have lost the rough word.
Yeah.
So like it seemed like before, people who wanted to use a bog would just use a corpse pile because for whatever reason they decided that they were always going to play with that extra horrific. Like I don't know why, it just seemed to be the way things went.
I used to play bogs all the time. Bogs over corpse
Yeah.
piles all the time as free folk. Because they were bigger and they were better.
Interestingly, one of the things Mickey's been saying about bogs for a very long time is the bogs. Obviously, all these things like this is examples of terrain, but like that's the terrain people use. Bogs are bigger than corpse piles. They cover a bigger area. So if you're looking to put a terrain piece down which affects the game in a way that you want it to, a bog has a wider, bigger footprint and will affect the game in a bigger way, unless you're desperate to get that horrific. The rough and the new hindering, they have an impact. They are hindering, slowing the game a lot more than actual movement. Rough doesn't seem like that big of an impact to me.
Yeah. What's actually telling about the bog, fortunately, is it plays into archers a lot more. I don't see many people running bogs, and I actually think bogs are better than corpse piles if you're running archer units, because you want to slow people getting to you. The rough -1 movement is a thing that they have to worry about.
Mhm.
And the hindering, obviously losing the rerolls is massive. Like if they do manage to get a long bomb charge off into your archers, then it puts things in. And that -1 movement, like it might put them another inch away, so their charge is like a 3, not a 2 or a 1. Like that
Yeah.
makes a big difference. Like not being like a lot of people play with auto in charges. You make it so it's not auto in anymore. Like people are less likely to want to take that on.
Yeah, people, including myself, don't like to take on like a 3+ charge, like because the downsides of failing a charge can be really bad. Like it can be really painful. The test plus being so out of position, you have to learn to mitigate it by like charging at particular angles where you're happy with where you will end up if you fail, but that's not always possible. And yeah, it's just not nice to take on a full action and then just like waste it and lose it and not end up in combat. So so bugs can really have a big impact in my opinion.
Akisa's right as well. Place it long ways. Make it so it actually takes ages to move through. Champions of the Stag love that. Say that for free. 3 movement. I played an opponent once with Dancer Dragons and Bog on Dancer Dragons. Like you have 1-inch movement. Cavalry unit that moves 2 inches because it can't march. Whole movement of cavalry is to move 2 inches. Like brutal. Absolutely brutal. You make dragons move 2 inches as well. They kind of ignore terrain, so it'd be 4 inches for dragons. But yeah. Stakes. Only really bringing the dangerous keyword. Destructible's like not really a keyword. Stakes are seeing play, but it almost seems like randomly and sporadically rather than actually for any real good reason. I think in a lot of games I've seen them. I play stakes a lot, actually. I have senior builders in some of my Night's Watch lists, and continuing the builder meme. And I like putting down stakes in the middle of a game because it's an absolute shitter on your opponent. Stakes are super useful, but they're not seeing a huge amount of play for, I think, tactical reasons. People are just putting stakes on the board because they want stakes there.
Yeah, so stakes are so like dangerous is so painful.
Punishing.
So punishing. Yeah. You cannot charge into a unit and end up on the stakes. If you end up on the stakes with a charge, you take that D3+1, and now you're stuck there taking D3+1 every single time you take another action. So if you can put a charge arc across stakes and have just more than 50% of that arc showing over stakes, you are basically unchargeable by anything that doesn't just want to kill itself. If your opponent retreats, they'll take damage. If you retreat from them, they're stuck on the stakes. If they pivot, they take damage from your retreat. If they try and get off, they take damage. If they try and kill the stakes, they take damage. It is so overwhelmingly bad to be on them that you just don't touch them. And that makes them really powerful when you can place them down wherever you want with the builder. And I still think that's a ridiculously powerful ability, considering that they gave him the extras of controlling money bags. But only one person gets to utilize them, and not many people are really, using them to deny space, because it can be very, very hard to predict how it's going to go in future rounds. So they just get avoided by entirety, and that's rightly so, because you just don't go near them. Like, it's too painful.
I like using them. Certain game modes we've got in the TSL this week round. We've got honed and ready. You can't put impassable terrain down, so you can't put palisades down. But stakes are definitely an option, and you can bet that I'm be placing some stakes 100%. Then we've got my favourite new piece of terrain. Outside of stakes, my favourite new piece of terrain, and actually 2 of my favourites coming up. Low walls and hedges. So low walls, destructible, fortified, and hindering. We talked about hindering, we talked about fortified, but those 2 keywords, incredible.
Yeah.
Like, the most defensive piece of terrain pretty much you can put on the board. Othel, one of his cards, lets him just deploy one of these.
Yeah, there is no point charging across a wall. Like, if your opponent is at all defensive on the other side and you don't have cards or abilities or something that's going to give you your rerolls back, giving yourself no rerolls and giving them +1 save is an absolute nightmare. I've played a game where 2 units have just sat opposite side of a wall all game, just looking at each other and passing. Neither of them wanted to give up the position. Neither of them wanted to move away. But neither was willing to charge the other, because charging would actually put you in the worst situation. So you just passed. And then even once your opponent had passed, like literally had passed, and they couldn't activate and attack them back, the opponent still didn't really want to charge across the wall. Like, it still wasn't worth it because of the counter mechanics that could have come in. I mean, admittedly, the 2 units had like counter attack and something else. So, you know, like that was a relatively extreme case, but it was enough that just nobody wanted to fight anybody. Nobody wanted to destroy the wall either, because as soon as I use my action to destroy the wall, you'll charge me. And so it was 2 units basically using the same wall to defend themselves from their opponent at the same time. It was a bit crazy. But they are, and it was a wall put down by Offal in the middle of the game, of course. So, you know, but I just think, yeah, it's huge. It is huge. Very much like the stakes. It's, if you can get there in the right place, then you can make it work for you very, very well. A lot of the time, it just doesn't do anything because units move around it.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, we move on to hedges. Hedges are cover. Well, low walls were destructible. Hedges are destructable. Interesting. And rough, and they give the cover keyword as well. I really like hedges. Not gonna lie. I thought about the hedges.
For a start, cover means nothing when your tray is wider than a hedge. How are you ever going to not have line of sight to that unit? So it might as well not have the cover word.
Trays are actually slightly narrower than the hedges. Not much. Really not
we
much
would have to be literally exactly in line for me not to be able to see your back corner.
Yeah. Tell you what this is good though for. Really good for. Because it's a smaller piece of terrain, less usable by other units. Dragons. You could basically just put a dragon in a hedge. And the dragon's hidden. Oh, dragon in a hedge. That's a meme, right? That's a meme right there.
Yeah.
I actually thought about this. Like, dragons in hedges is no word of a lie. It's probably better than using them in forests, because forests other people can use, right? If you've got outriders, you lose out. Solos in general can use hedges, where solos can hide in forests, but you lose out if you're bringing outriders or other range units, and your opponent gets to use the forest. Your opponent can't use a hedge if you've got archers and solos, because the trays just aren't going to be hidden by the hedge. But your solos are.
The idiocy of the fact that, like, a hedge, which is nowhere near as tall as somebody on a horse, is only hiding people on horses, is kind of crazy. But, you know,
I am fully waiting for the day until someone puts a freedman unit in a hedge that can't be shot at, so it has to be charged and killed. And you're just like, well, you just charged a freedman unit. That was a great use of your time.
That's true. That's true, actually. Yeah, freedmen. Yeah, freedmen are going to spend a lot of time hiding in hedges and in forests, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, hedges. I love them, but they're stupid as all hell. And that brings us on to palisades. Palisades obviously seeing a lot less play in some game modes in some areas, but also palisades seeing a hell of a lot of play with certain factions, certain builds. Genuine question, Carlo. Are palisades actually somewhat problematic?
Not as much as when dragons could shoot. When dragons could shoot, they were making really, really bad gameplay, right? It was dragon hides behind palisade, flies over palisade, shoots, like, and then tries to get back over palisade. As soon as you turn to face it, it just goes and hides again. I haven't seen enough gameplay. I personally haven't seen any individual gameplay situations where it's made a really bad situation yet. I've never seen somebody exploit them in that kind of way. I I think that just in general, the units that are ignoring line of sight overall. So we're talking about the Scorpion. Also, if they were more powerful, we're talking about Stark Bowman here, right? They also ignore line of sight. Those units are making a bit of mockery of the tactical use of terrain. So that is a problem. And Palisade's just a symptom of that. And I don't think that it's any more significant than any other piece of terrain in that kind of way. Blocks line of sight doesn't do anything that cover doesn't do. Like, they are the same keyword now, right? Basically. Aren't they? Yeah, like blocks line of sight and cover are the same thing.
Basically.
So you're basically a glorified hedge, right? Like, you're a hedge that you're not allowed to sit in
or move through.
So it just doesn't. It's no different. It's not like the problem that it was when dragons were what they were. I don't think it needs a change, but I don't like the terrain interactions as a general rule. I think they're having an impact on the game. I'm not sure if that's positive or negative. Like, a lot of people told me, like, 2021, use 2021 terrain. It's so much better than 1.6 terrain. I don't see it myself.
What's actually interesting is that Palisades obviously block line of sight for the case of some like interactions, like you have to be in line of sight for marked target, whereas woods and hedges don't. They don't block line of sight for things outside of range attacks.
True.
So there is some token interaction there as a subtle difference, but for most intents and purposes, like range attacks are blocked by the same thing equally. I don't know how I feel about Palisades. I think they're a bad thing for the game actually right now. And it is very interesting. It's very interesting indeed that Palisades are the only banned terrain piece in any of the game modes. You are not allowed to put down Palisades in Honed and Ready.
Yeah, so that's because
is interesting.
That's because obviously you have the impassable walls at the sides, which is narrowing in the table itself. If you then applied Palisades, you could really pinch the board, but it's not that significant. Like, we're only talking a few more inches, so it's interesting that they felt that it was needed. That just those extra, what I think it's maybe like 2.5 inches at each side of the board that it's pinched in. They felt that 5 inches total less wide board required it to say no, kind of odd.
Yeah. People saying it obviously it box corpse piles and things like that. Yeah, that's obviously box charges and things like that with Palisades. Yeah, it's a big thing, but like we talked about, like blocking charges is possible with other ways, and ultimately, like blocking charges is a big part of it. With when it comes to Palisades, but it's just a negative part of the game, I think, at the moment, because like just blocking a charge, while I think is good if it's like positional play and things like that, I think I've actually had enough of it when it's positional play around a piece of terrain that is actually really easy and simple to do, and is just benefiting a range unit which could be done otherwise.
I don't think anybody in recent times who's been playing a lot on TTS and the like, I don't think anybody in the last year has seen somebody do a charge block by putting like a 50% line of sight into another unit in a frontage, into a terrain piece or a unit, and has gone, oh, good tactical play. They've just gone, fuck's sake.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, since the first, like, honestly, I feel like I might be giving him too much credit. Somebody else might be like, hey, I did that first. Since Ariakas took on Larks, put some Palisades across the board, and just charge denied for the entire game, I think people have been like, oh, wow. Okay, that's a thing that we do now, right? Like, and people were charge blocking before that, but nobody had done it to such an extent. And when Ariakas took that mirror matchup of the Starks and was just like playing a list that people didn't give a lot of chance to win, and then just showed that he was just going to deny charges continuously and just constantly moved so that nothing ever offered 50% frontage because of Palisades.
Yeah.
When he did that, I think the whole TTS community, a big watch game, 2 big players, the whole TTS community was like, wow, I now see what it is to continuously deny charges. And since then, nobody's ever seen it done and thought, what interesting, exciting gameplay. How clever are you at this game? They've just gone, all right, you're using that old crap trick then. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was amazing gameplay and forethought by the first person to do it, to just copy it and do it again, and makes it quite an abusive mechanic. And that's one of the reasons that I don't like Palisades. But people do it all the time with units. Palisades aren't the problem. It's just not a good rule.
Yeah. People have talked about it very recently as being gamey and things like that. We mentioned it last week, but actually the whole like blocking charges thing, like, I think positional play is very important, and I like the rule that you can block charges with positional play, especially with things like archers, so you don't just get caught out, that people just charge your archers through your lines, because that would suck, right? You just lose your archer unit. But it's a problem when you can do it to an extent where things just, like, where things are an issue and you can't deal with them. Like, that's the problem. And the rules need to be, in my opinion, they need to be adjusted to represent the fact. And people say it's like precision pivoting on like things like TTS. Bollocks. People do this on TTS because it's the way people are playing. Like, I do it in real life all the time. Like, when I play real life games, I just do it now.
All the time. You just pivot your unit and you just say to your opponent, so we agree that this is over 50%. And they're like, yep. And like, you know,
it's not as
again,
precise.
We're back to playing with intent. I'll just pivot a unit and I'll be like, there's my middle.
Clipping the corner. You just pivot a little bit more and you go, there you go, done. It's obvious.
Yeah, exactly. Like, anybody who thinks that this isn't played in person is playing, like, you know, in reverse to like being gamey. They're playing a gentleman's agreement of, we won't use the rules.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I'm sorry, but if rules are there and are being exploited, then it's not the people who are exploiting the rules problem. It is the people who are writing the rules' problem. Always is. Stop blaming the people who use the rules and start blaming the people who make the rules. That's always.
So there is we've lost him again there. Internet's playing up tonight, clearly. That's Carlo's and not my end. Haha. Elevated, the keyword there. Pandemonium, will Kickstarter Hills ever actually become a thing? It's in the rules, but no.
No.
Right, that was easy.
I mean, if they haven't done it by now, if they haven't put it in, like, why isn't there a hill? In, you know, there's no reason why it can't be a piece of 2D terrain. If they haven't put one in by now, they're not going to put one in.
Stupid. I don't know why they didn't. Like, the rules are all there. They've got the terrain piece even like made. They just like have literally chosen not to put it in the game. It just seems really weird.
I actually always hate hills in nearly all games, but that's because mostly when they're 3D, I hate the sloping side and then models are like slipping off, and are they half on, half off? It's the worst thing ever. 2D hills would actually be kind of good. The 3D Kickstarter one actually has a really, really aggressive slope and then is flat on the top,
plateau,
so it can work in terms of gameplay.
More like a plateau.
But nah, yeah, I'm not. I'm not mourning the loss of hills just because they don't make for good gameplay.
Games. No. Well, there you go, guys. There is one more thing we're going to do today. We are going to look at... this is a game that I play. This is my TSL game. We're going to start off a new series today. But it's going to be a bit different.
Why Mickey lost.
No, not why Mickey lost.
Mickey lost his TSL game this week.
We're going to present to you a board state. Now, this one is not presented for this. This just happens to be a board state that I know. You won't get to see the cards in hand and things like that, tactics cards necessarily. But we're going to look at basically what is going to be known as what would you do, or what's the tactic, right? We'll set this up on using the other stuff we've got here. So you can see here it's the Lannisters player's turn in this particular game. And yes, the graphics aren't great. We've got poor fellows on 6 health, warrior sons, it's poor fellows with a champion of the faith. We've got Warrior Sons with, I believe it was not Preston, Mandon Moore. I think it's Mandon Moore, I think. We've got Conscripts on 7 with a senior builder. We've got Crossbowmen with Watch Captain and Jamie maimed hostage, and a Scorpion. The idea is, what does the Lannister player do here? This is an actual game situation. I can tell you exactly what they did do because I know what happened. But this is something new we're going to bring along. I'm not expecting anybody to have an answer straight away. Lannister does have cards.
So let me just check. So that's Warrior Sons with Mandon Moore, currently the red unit towards the bottom of the screen.
Yep.
Are they in the flank of the yellow unit in the center?
Yes. They're in.
And what is that unit?
Conscripts with a senior builder.
Conscript. And the one above it is conscripts as well.
No, crossbowmen with the Watch Captain and Jamie maimed.
Oh, nasty. And it's Lannister to play.
Lannister to play. So this is
and they got Littlefinger, Joffrey, and
High Sparrow.
High Sparrow as well.
So this is the new series we'll be bringing along. We'll be setting it up, not using just screenshots like this. We'll be actually setting it up on a board so we can draw tactics and things on the board, discuss what we would do in those situations from key moments of games that we've seen. I've seen, people have seen. Send them to me if they want. I know what happened here, and it all comes down to the Lannister deck. So this week's one we'll just talk about straight away. But basically, what we see here is we see the High Sparrow going onto Crowns and crown zapping the conscripts. It's a -2 check onto the conscripts, looking to heal the poor fellows up. Is
that with a war cry from the champion at the same time?
The war cry has actually already been applied, so they're already panicked and vulnerable.
Okay, so when you're panicked, I really like the odds on that. Without it, I feel like it's like, the odds are in your favor, but God, it's a scary check because if you fail, you're not in a good place.
But yeah, literally avoiding swords and taking crowns, which is probably what most people wouldn't do. They'd probably baelish swords, to take crowns that way. But you don't have High Sparrow on the
for the heal effect that comes off of the back of it, which presumably goes on to the poor fellows and is maybe enough to keep you alive.
Well, there's another important factor you've got to remember. That Night's Watch crossbowman unit has got Maim Jamie in it for a -1 to hit.
Yeah. Are they weakened or anything like that? No.
Not at the moment.
But do they have Othel's money bags?
They do, and they've got all of
them. So they hit on 2s.
But 3s with Maim Jamie.
3s with Maim Jamie, then they become vicious. Are they vicious as well?
Yep.
It's hard. I think I don't see the poor fellows surviving the round. Like, I think it's really stacked against you for the poor fellows to survive the round. What are you playing? Are you playing Game of Thrones?
Game of Thrones.
And currently the Night's Watch doesn't control any objectives.
No, although I do basically control the middle one. For what it's worth, I could just move on to it.
You're playing Night's Watch.
I'm playing Night's Watch.
Cool.
I was, yeah.
Oh, I just realized that this is your
my
game.
Yeah, my TSL game. Yeah.
Wait, you're controlling the middle objective?
No, I'm not. I'm not on it. I'm not on it now.
You'll have to move. You'll have to move over it, right?
Yeah. Charles thinks baelish.
Yeah, like it says, use red cloaks.
So actually, the play that he made was he did crown zap my conscripts with High Sparrow onto the crowns, and he also played, as it turns out, he had Fealty of the Crown in hand. Obviously, tactics cards do matter.
Fealty's short range now, though, right? So
no, long range.
Is it long range? Because I couldn't remember that. So if Fealty's long range, I actually don't think I'd do that. I think I'd possibly charge the conscripts in the flank with the Warrior Sons if I have Fealty in hand.
The problem is if you do that, there's a chance you don't make it back onto the objectives. You score 1
Yeah.
for killing the conscripts, but you don't score any more points with that Warrior Sun unit. You're already scoring 1 if you just stay still. As it turned out, he healed up the poor fellows. The conscripts survived on like 2 or 3 health. I walked them onto the stakes to control the middle point, with just 1 health left, and then I had to take a 3+ charge onto the poor fellows to engage them, where I almost certainly would have removed the last rank while being on max health myself. To challenge the objective and take it to 9-9. With a reroll on the charge, I rolled a 2 and a 1, thus failed to get into combat with the poor fellows and lost the game, 10-9. So
I'm confused. If you just kill the poor fellows, surely you win.
yeah, if I kill
So
them,
why not just shoot them?
I don't have enough.
Why take the 3+ charge on when you can shoot at short range with a 3+ reroll?
Because
Like, I don't see any way between the swords, the watch cap. Do you have a watch captain?
Yes.
Swords, watch captain, and another shot. There's no way that the poor fellows survived this round.
They did. Didn't have enough shots to get through them. Literally, I didn't. I honestly did.
You do if you shoot instead of charging.
No, I did shoot. I shot. My last activation of the turn was I can't kill these with the last shot of the game, because if I don't kill them, if I don't just straight up I think I had to do 9 wounds to kill them. If I didn't do 9 wounds, I would just lose. Whereas at least if I charge, I don't lose the game if I make the charge. I just won't lose the game if I make the charge. That's the difference, is I had to kill them with the shot.
Okay, and how many wounds were they on?
9, I think, if I was going to make the shot.
How are they on 9 wounds?
From here?
Yeah, how did you let them get back to 9 wounds?
Panic tests. Like, literally, this is their activation. Panic tests and activating. It's constantly healed up the whole turn, whole round, because of panic tests.
Let me just check, right? It's the start of the round, right?
We've had 1 action.
Yeah, he's going to counter with High Sparrow onto crowns to the conscripts.
With failty, he goes to 12 wounds at the result of the crowns.
He goes to 12.
Yeah.
Now you out-activate him, so presumably you can wait until he's activated before you take any of your shots against him.
Yes.
Right. Well, I mean, you can take swords first of all.
Swords, yeah.
So you take swords and you shoot him.
Yep.
And what did he end up on?
I think I did very little damage. Very little damage indeed. I rolled badly, basically this whole turn. But I think he ended up with taken 5 wounds. I think he'd end up on 2 ranks, just 2 ranks. He'd end up on 7 health remaining.
I don't see how, if you just continuously shift forward, get within 6-inch range, reroll to hit at 3s, you don't wipe this guy. Like, I find that statistically impossible.
Yep. No, honestly, I'd obviously, if I recorded the game, you'd see it. Just shot after shot after shot, just couldn't kill them. It was really sad. It was really sad. That was the tale of that game. So I had to take the charge on, because if my last shot didn't kill them, that was it. I'd rather take a 50-50 with a reroll, so 75% chance to draw the game. And if I drew, by the way, I probably would have just killed him straight away next turn. There was basically no way he could stop it. So I would have won the game if I made the charge. If I made the shot, there was odds he probably would have had to fail a panic test for me to kill him, or me to hit with everything on 3+. Yeah, it was a pretty sad day. That was a pretty sad day. Won't lie.
I mean, knowing that I believe that the poor fellows, I literally can't believe that the poor fellows can survive the attack. You're not playing High Sparrow. There's no defensive capabilities. You're out activated. Literally, you cannot control the activation flow. Therefore, I don't believe that High Sparrow onto the conscripts is the right play. I don't believe it's correct because I don't believe that the game can go that way. Like, I might have to literally might have to do the math, because it's physically impossible. Like, I actually think I believe you've done something wrong, Mickey. Like,
no, it's literally not impossible. The other thing you've got to remember, he's got card play and letters. He can put a weakened token on me if I take swords. So the second shot with 3+ is actually not that likely to do much damage. Honestly, like, you can have a go at me for failing, but It didn't happen. It just didn't happen.
How many times did you shift before you were
Every time.
Fair enough.
I literally shift forward every single time as well. But he backed off. He used the horses. The key here is he uses the horses to retreat. So he's only controlling the token with just the front. It makes the charge the longest possible charge as well. Yeah, trust me. Like, I did it. I'm not saying I didn't do any different.
He takes crowns. You take swords.
Yep.
Well, he takes crowns now. You take swords. He takes horses.
Yep.
You take letters.
No, he takes horses. What do I take? I think I do take letters with Aemon. I think that's right. No, I take swords with Aemon to heal the conscripts back up. I take takes Joffrey horses, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this this segment should just be rewritten into Mickey complaining about the fact that he should have won.
I'm not complaining. I'm not saying. I was asking what the play was. I wasn't trying to explain. Jesus fucking Christ. But no, it's what we're gonna do.
So I mean, it's an interesting point because it's not chess, right? There aren't right moves and there aren't wrong moves. There are margins for victory and margins for error.
Yeah.
And I believe that. I mean, I don't believe that there are necessary. I haven't found a better move that I think the Lannister player can make. But if you ask me whether or not he made the right play, I would say no, because he statistically cannot win the game. He 100% loses the poor fellows to triple crossbow shot. That is not doable without weakened tokens, without other stuff. Yeah, 3 shots from the crossbows and 1 from the scorpion. You can't survive that. You don't survive that. They're all vicious. So the poor fellows are also on 6 morale. So some of those are going to fail. You've got letters. You can even make that a panic test. Or a vulnerable if there's crazy 6s. There aren't any cards in the Lannister deck these days that do enough to help you survive. He has no other routes to make you make panic checks. There is no reasonable way that the Lannister player wins the game from this situation.
It happened. It happened because, you just don't hit. But that's the point, right? That's the point. It's about understanding like what play was made, and that's why we're going to bring you the series. It's like knowing what play was made in the situation and what the outcome was, right? I was frustrated when I lost this game, but that's not why I'm showing you this. I'm showing you this because the play that was made was not directly obvious. That's the whole point of this new series, and it clearly worked. Like, we're not assessing who wins and loses these situations. We're assessing what the plays that were made are. So yeah, we'll bring this series back because I think it is interesting. It does cause people to have a think, actually have a discussion. We'll do it better because we'll be using this system here better, and we'll also include tactics cards where we can. So yeah, we'll see what the plays end up being, and we'll see what if anyone's got any interesting moments from a game that they play, and they think, you know what, actually the play that was made here is not what people think. Send it to us. We'll be glad to talk about it on Tourney Ground. So, there we go. Another week, Carlo.
How far is the distance? How far is the different distance between the conscripts, the crossbowmen and the
I can't remember it exactly at the time, but it ended up being 9. Is that right? 9 or 8? I think it was 8 at the end. By the time all the shifts are done and he moved back as well, it was 8, I think.
Okay. And so you never got rerolls to hit?
No, never got rerolls because I was never close enough from the moving 2 inches forward to close the distance.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I'm with Weasel. The problem with analysis like this because things aren't.
Yeah, no.
Because things aren't certain, like in chess.
Yep.
The issue with it is that people believe that the outcome that happened is the correct outcome, when actually it can be a huge statistical anomaly that happened, and therefore statistically it is the wrong play to make.
So that's why we're
But
going to
just
bring it through,
because-
though. That's why it makes interesting discussion.
Okay, then.
Because actually you can look at
I'll
it.
respond to you. I'll respond to you when I've calculated the odds of the poor fellow surviving.
That's fine. It's fine. I don't actually care about the odds of them surviving. The point I'm trying to make is, like, what play would you make versus what play was make is the whole point.
Yeah.
That's actually the whole point of the discussion, and it does cause a massive discussion point. That's the whole point. Is that the play you would make is not necessarily the play that was made, and yet the play that was made was successful. And it's understanding that actually you can be successful while doing something that would be considered bad. But if it's bad and still works, is it really bad? You know, that's the whole point of that discussion. So we'll bring it back. I'm going to do it again. Not with my games, clearly, because you saying, oh, you just didn't kill them, you're bad, is terrible feedback. You just roll better. Get good, roll better. Nice games. Anyway. Yes, Makista. All right, we'll leave it there for this week. Carlo, next week, what are we going to be talking about?
Maybe the first tournaments run on the site.
Hopefully. Are you going to say that with a straight face so I can believe you?
The first tournaments run on the site.
There we go. So next week we'll talk about the first couple of tournaments run on the site. We'll talk about where we stand, where things are going, and we'll just see where any more news comes out. We'll see if anything crazy happens, like, you know, more pictures randomly released by George R.R. Martin that show a potential Red Loras Rainbow Guard thing, whatever that was supposed to be. Anyway, we will take it from there, and we will see you all next week. Ready, aim, release! Anyone see my mammoth?